you can't be either Neo or Agent Smith. Not only do you need your ammo, but that ammo is kind of pointless if you don't have the proper tools to use it with. So right now would actually be an excellent time to go to your local gun shops or your local Rule King, head to that gun barn and start investing in some firearms and plenty of bullets. Right here is my Smith & Wesson M&P 15 Sport 2. Yeah, that sight's right on the money. So, tell you what, truthers, and my fellow Americans.
Go tell that long-time liar. Go and tell that midnight rider. Tell the rambler again with a backbite. Tell them the God. Tell them the God. Cut them down. Goodness gracious, let me tell you the news. My head's been wet with the midnight dew. I've been down on a bended knee, talking to the man from Galilee. He spoke to me in a voice so sweet, I thought I heard the angels. He called my name, my heart stood still. John, take my will. Run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. You may throw your rock and hide your hand, working in the dark against a fellow man. But as sure as God made black or white, what's down in the dark will be brought to the light. You can run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Tell him the God's gonna cut you down.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Truther Odyssey, where we seek the truth in a world full of disinformation and indoctrination. I am your host, the Truth Talker, Jacob Eggers. Last night we did a first of what I hope to be many special kind of episodes. You know how like Joe Rogan Experience, they have like certain episodes such as they haven't done these in a while, the Sober October, the Fight Companions. And those kind of get their own separate category. They get their own episode numbers. So Fight Companion number isn't the same numbers as JRE numbers. It's the Joe Rogan Experience, but it's a separate catalog under the JRE umbrella, in essence. So last night we did episode 1 of the Truth X Files. And as we were doing that last night, watching that congressional hearing, I kept hearing a phrase that I was unfamiliar with. And the phrase that I kept hearing was Immaculate Constellation, which brings me to what tonight is about. Tonight on Truth or Odyssey, Truth X Files episode Dose, we're diving into revelations that may change how you see everything. First, we're going to watch and unpack an interview from the Weaponized podcast with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp with the author of the Immaculate Constellation report. But here's the twist. When we finish watching this interview, we're going to go off the mainstream grid. Just like last night, we're on Rumble, we're on Locals, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. And just like last night, once we hit a certain point in the live stream, YouTube, Facebook won't be able to see the end of the live stream. So if you come across this content, whether you're watching it live tonight or you watch it at a later point, you want to leave YouTube, go to Rumble or Locals to see what the end of the live stream is. This is your off ramp to go deeper. You'll need to join us on Rumble or on Locals as we read and analyze the report itself line by explosive line, okay? So this is going to be a banger. We are going to watch it from the Weaponized podcast website, weaponized.com. I'll probably end up adding the link to this in the description if you want to go and watch this thing without my interruptions, without having to hear me chiming in and out. We're going to watch this. I'm going to drink beer, smoke cigarettes, give you my thoughts. So welcome, episode 2 of the Truth X Files. If I recall, what was his name again? The gentleman, the whistleblower, like John Brown or something like that. Matthew Brown. I was mistaken. I was close. I had the last name right. Matthew Brown. Worked in the Pentagon. So this is going to be a good one, guys. Let me get this video pulled up to share with you guys. Oh, my bad. Wrong button. Share.
And we will hear testimony today concerning recent revelations about a purportedly secret UAP program whose existence and findings may have been improperly withheld from Congress. This is going to be the original document about Immaculate Constellation.
Those of us who've been following this very closely have been hearing whispers of the words Immaculate Constellation for a few months now.
The Immaculate Constellation, it's a UAP reconnaissance program. I can affirm this 100%.
What is in here is wild. I mean, and I'm paraphrasing, but reports of F-22s getting like boxed in by flying orbs that they couldn't shake. There were satellite images or satellite image of a football field-sized flying saucer hiding in clouds.
I have personally walked people into members' offices for private meetings so they could see eye to eye and they could meet.
You are the author of what the world knows as the Immaculate Constellation Report.
It has been allowed to corrupt and infest every aspect of our society to serve the interests and whims of a very elite, select few.
The following is an interview with the author of the Immaculate Constellation Report that was submitted into congressional record.
Is it ironic you have to put your face out with us to protect yourself at this point? That's what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
This is absolutely what I did not want to do.
You've worked in secret programs. You've got clearances. You've made oaths that you would keep secrets. Let's talk about secrecy and the UAP topic. Shouldn't it be secret to some degree? I mean, we have, there's a race for the technology to try to understand it. We have adversary nations who'd love to get it ahead of us. Why not keep this stuff secret?
Well, if it was just technology that we are worried about protecting and maintaining a military advantage, there's strong arguments to be made and have successfully been made for decades in this country that the American leadership and American people seem to be finding acceptable to be left in the dark about where science, technology, and their military is taking them. This isn't just technology. This isn't something somebody came up with in a lab and it's sensitive because once the cat's out of the bag, anybody can do it. Fundamentally, this comes from and is secondary to what we've been told is the biggest question, which is humanity alone? The answer is no. And the secrecy that has been defended is at the cost of, in my mind, human dignity, freedom, and progress. And it is no longer permissible or acceptable in my mind to continue this course, to deprive another generation of not just Americans, but humanity of their birthright to know who they are, where they came from, and what's with us.
Could you give us a general description of the size of the secrecy apparatus? We're going to drill down into this, of course, about IMCON and one particular facet of the secrecy that you came across and other parts of it. But how big of a secrecy apparatus is it? How many stovepipes are there? How many people are involved in different ways of keeping this secret, confusing the public, lying to Congress, lying to the world?
Simply put, it's a parallel reality. The secrecy apparatus is all pervasive. It is not just in the intelligence community governing their world. It's not just in the military protecting their operations. It's not protecting our diplomats and leaders as they conduct their work, sometimes in very dangerous places. It has been allowed to corrupt and infest every aspect of our society to serve the interests and whims of a very elite, select few.
And it's been used to intimidate, threaten, destroy the lives of people like yourselves who have been doing their job, keeping their oaths, trying to protect their country, being true to humanity, and have paid prices for it.
Absolutely.
This has been a difficult process for you, for me and you, kind of going through this. I've seen what you've gone through personally with this. You're taking a personal hit, like a painful, just talking to us, just doing this finally after all this time. I think I understand why. You're explaining something philosophical, what you believe about the secrecy, just personally. Like, What is the step for you to do this? Like, why?
Real quickly, the interviewee, Matthew Brown, listen to what he's saying, listen to his vocabulary, the point he's trying to get across, and it's going to sound eerily familiar about everything we're talking about on the Truth or Odyssey. Everything.
Why? I need to understand why. Why are you telling this to everybody
Now.
There's no short answer. It's something, I have many, not even competing, but parallel motivations. But why now? Look out at the world. Look inside our country. We are not headed to a good future.
You're concerned.
I am.
Explain the concern.
Ultimately, my biggest fear is what humanity will do to itself out of fear and greed, and what we have done. And we have built a prison around ourselves. It's invisible, but it's not complete. And there is still time to maybe alter our trajectory, have a different future. May not be the best one that we had hoped for, but it's going to be damn sight better than what they have planned for us.
There's no going back after you tell us this on camera. We had this conversation. This is it. This is the line in the sand. You're about to cross over here.
Absolutely. I am, on a personal level, giving up the future that I made for myself and was going to try to make for a family. I'm proud of what I accomplished in my time in government, and it's painful to leave the good people there and to know that there really isn't room for people to act according to their conscience and our constitutional ideals on the inside.
Is it your belief, based on materials, things that you've been exposed to, that you've seen, people you've talked to and communicated with over a period of a couple of years, is it your belief that the technology, the race for the technology, the understanding of the big secret is entirely in the hands of people outside the government and not for the benefit of the public or to protect American national security? It's in some other realm, in some other hands.
I think it's a mix. I think our military, has a long historic involvement in this. So does our intelligence community and our scientific academic community. We have, as a country, allowed ourselves to be penetrated, co-opted, and corrupted by an internationalist force that serves their interests and views nations, peoples as tools and means to an end.
Like a business cabal, international corporations that have no loyalty to any nation, let alone this one.
That's a large part of it. I think we have to go above that too, to start to explain the degree of the level of deception and the level of commitment they've had to maintaining that deception. It's above just monetary gain and power. They're afraid.
George and I have talked about whistleblowers that come to us and we protect them. We don't often report on when people come to us. We're doing this now. What are the repercussions? People talk about whistleblowers being afraid. And there's one set of being afraid, which is when you're squeezed by outside entities, that are fucking with you, which has happened to you. And we'll talk about that. But what are the legal implications of what you're about to talk to us today? Tell me the gravity right now. What are you facing? I want our audience to understand what it means for you to talk to us right now. What could happen to you?
My hope is that the stakes are not paid out, but they are life imprisonment and the possibility of execution.
and you've tried all the right ways. I've helped you on some of it. You have tried all the right ways to do this, but you have something much bigger that is pushing on you, that you have to take this next step forward. And so now I just want people to understand where you're coming from. When we say we protect whistleblowers, when people come to us, not everybody goes on camera, but also just you work currently in Department of State, but maybe he should tell us his history.
Yeah, let's do chronological. So you got a degree in what?
So I got a degree in international affairs, came out to DC, started working in a small think tank. From there, I applied to and was accepted to a intelligence agency. Ended up taking a job at the Pentagon, basically waiting for the right opportunity for that world to pop up. Which when it did, I was having too much fun, so I said no.
You're in the Pentagon. Weapons of mass destruction is a general umbrella under which you're working. Did you got a security clearance at that point?
Yeah, I had been cleared by DIA for a top secret SCI clearance.
You get to see, I guess, firsthand all this different information that comes in from all over these places, different platforms, right? Mm-hmm. You're exposed to that. And you get an idea of how big that apparatus is.
Yes, absolutely. UFOs and aliens aside, it's a different world without anything exotic in it when you are exposed to that information and learning over time, not just from the intelligence, but the experiences of the people around you, because not everything that's true and has happened in the world is written down on paper.
I mean, you're given a lot of roles and responsibilities that gives you access to very sensitive information. When you said SCI, that's secret compartmentalized information is the acronym.
Sensitive compartmentalized information.
Yeah, it's probably right.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? But I'm just saying, you are a sane human being. You're given a lot of these responsibilities. I just think it's important for people to understand. So you have access to very critical information through the United States government. They're separate from the UFOs and the alien, topic that we're going to talk about.
For the world.
For the world.
The U.S. and the world.
Yes.
And that weighs heavy on you, I'm sure. Like you're really looking to defend the United States of America where you live, and you are looking at information that is just highly sensitive. I think it's important for people to know. Good people like you doing great jobs in there. You had access and responsibilities. People trust you. That's you can't get there without that.
It is it's a very burdensome role. I feel deeply for the people who have been there for many years. There's a lot of hidden suffering that comes from it, but it is I thought it was a noble and good mission. I still do.
And risks. I imagine there's all kinds of information that comes across your desk and that desk of other people you're working with at that point about weapons of mass destruction, the movement of nuclear weapons, or suddenly material that disappears and where did it go? Black market, biological weapons research, things that are going on around the world that we need to keep an eye on, right?
Yeah.
And things that never make the news.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. There is, like I said, there is there's many worlds, there's many shells to our reality that the public, including our professional media class, our professional academic class, our political class, has absolutely no idea exists. And if they do have an idea, they have a very distorted one, sometimes intentionally so.
I mean, you're not like some secret agent. You're not like some CIA secret agent. So people understand when you're working at the Pentagon is where we're at in the thing. I mean, we have a lot of great people that are bright-minded, working on these problems for the United States, keeping the United States safe, looking at geopolitical aspects of nuclear weaponry, that kind of thing. But just to be clear, I mean, you're not like some secret agent with more access than anybody else or anything like that.
No, I never wanted to be a field officer. I danced with the idea in my dreams maybe and read the books, but I knew that wasn't for me, especially the task and the cost of befriending and manipulating and ultimately using people. I don't think I would have been very good at that.
Like human intelligence and false friendship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Does that stuff come across your desk? Human intelligence, signals intelligence regarding weapons of mass
All
destruction?
sources. All sources intelligent. All sources of intelligence. And then if there are questions, you can go ask them and usually get the answers.
And the kinds of things that you see that come across your desk, does it give you pause? How am I going to sleep tonight knowing that this XYZ is going on somewhere? At times when they think, holy crap, how did this happen?
Everyone has like their different standard of what's going to, shake them like that. And I've definitely had a few of those. I won't share them, but.
Yeah, but I mean, just with security, for national security kind of stuff.
Right. Stuff unrelated to exotic things that are very.
The just world out there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're there for a while. You do that for how many years?
Oh, see, I was in there a little over 4 years, but I was in the Pentagon a little over 5 because I moved out of there briefly into the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and a smaller office in there.
We've heard of that office.
We have heard of that office.
Was it a different sort of work or the same thing, just for a different boss?
Same field, different work, different boss, different community.
So you're working for a contractor, but you're working at the Pentagon on Pentagon business. And that's sort of a model that is used for all kinds of programs, right?
Yeah. That's the industry in DC.
Is that to have a buffer of some sort? Why is that?
Well, you have government management, and they're supposed to be the ones that, they sign the checks, make the final decisions. But most of the staff is contractors, military people on detail, people on fellowships from, either think tanks or universities.
So you get to be familiar with stovepipes and how, you could be working on this and the guy may be in the office next to you or the desk next to you is working on something else and you don't know what they're working on.
Yeah, I mean, it can be that way. My experience was more that we had a team. It was all more or less on the same information level, but then there'd be other teams that, they have their own. So it's not quite as isolated. I've heard from others, it can be just, it's you and no one else around you knows what you're doing.
You got a company, it's a contractor that's working there in the Pentagon. How much oversight is there from the actual Pentagon, the military, of a contractor's work?
Well, I mean, the day-to-day is overseen by the government. So
I wonder who the contractor company was he worked for. Like, is it like Mike Baker's company? Mike Baker, who comes on Joe Rogan quite a bit. He's ex-CIA who went private, started his own intelligence company. So that's got my curiosity of who he could have worked for. Food for thought. Food for thought.
Oh, in that sense, it's there.
and is that generally true for all the contractor programs that we'll be getting into later? That somebody in the military or IC is looking at what that contractor does?
No, I couldn't say.
Right?
Yeah, I could not say.
We got the 1 degree, and then you went on to try to get a master's.
Yeah, I went to George Washington University, Master's of Security Policy Study. Got to the point where I had a thesis to submit, and then I started working at the Pentagon. Took a break and kind of got caught up in the churn, as the term is.
Right. I'm curious about just what it's like to work at the Pentagon. I mean, to think you're driving to work. There it is, the heart and soul of the national security of our country. You're doing important work, weapons of mass destruction in the biggest office building in the world. I would think there'd be a lot of satisfaction in that. But I wonder what day-to-day is like. Are you under surveillance? Do you have to do polygraphs? Can you tell your wife what you're doing? Do you socialize with colleagues? Or do you have to worry about what you say to whom and where?
Yeah, so I mean, starting with the first part, I think for me at least, it was like I finally made it, right? I'm working at the Pentagon. It's cheesy, but I felt pride pretty much every single day that I rolled in there.
That's not cheesy. That's awesome.
And I was very fortunate to join an office that cared a lot about their people, not just their performance at work, but their goals, their desires, and how they were getting on with life in general. Fewer places are like that. But I look back on that time with a lot of happiness.
How do things begin to sour? Is it because of this topic that we're going to discuss?
Yes.
Let's take it from there. When does that start? What's your first exposure?
I mean, were you like a UFO guy like before all that? I mean, like there's something that happened and there's always an instigator, right? But it's like, were you like a UFO guy all your years back or?
To some degree, I've always been interested in aliens and UFOs, secret histories, the things that are hidden from us. It's been a lifelong kind of passion. It's not always aliens, While I was always interested in these things, they were only a realm of possible. And when I looked at UFOs in a serious way, as I was more in my college years, I got not exposure, but I started learning about the sort of ecosystem of secrecy in the military-industrial complex, what SAPs are, what CAPs are, and you start to realize, there's a good chance a lot of what these UFO things are some really cool stuff that we have, whether it's in the air, under the water, or right in front of you.
You're not getting a job at the Pentagon until you want to get access to the UFO scene.
No. When I joined, I thought, I'd pretty much locked down that, there might be life out there, but most of what we're seeing in the skies at that time, I thought was either ours or ally or adversary.
You don't go over the deep end. You're not going to MUFON conferences. No. You're not wearing a beanie and alien stuff on your head.
No. In fact, I would be looked at like I had a third eye just by suggesting they were stealth satellites.
I mean, in fact, you've never been to like a UFO conference or anything like that, have you?
No.
Right, that's not your style.
No.
You're a very analytically minded person. It's something I've learned. I bet you're fucking really good at your job because just the way our communications, the way you deep dive into research, that's a talent to be able to pull big source information, all source information, and kind of come to conclusions. That is one of your skill sets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you ever work 9 to 5? Because you're kind of a workaholic, right? And you go over the top.
Yeah. I really liked the Pentagon. I learned an immense amount there, and I would stay there till the wee hours of the morning learning.
Which is also how you found out information about the topic we're going to discuss.
I delved too deeply.
And you came across this sort of accident?
100% accidentally. Sorry. The Immaculate Constellation piece of this, 100% accidentally. Before I was exposed to that, I had seen UAP on military videos in the Pentagon, but nothing that suggested, origin, intent, or in the level of detail that, I came to find later.
So explain that to the average. Like, how do you just come across UFO videos in the Pentagon? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Tell somebody who has no idea how that happens.
So you have a clearance and there's a secret internet. And on that secret internet, there's just a generic access like you and I. It's all very secret, sensitive stuff, but more or less everyone can look at what's on there. Then, you have on this secret internet some compartmentation, light compartmentation, as it were. And then there's entirely different systems for truly sensitive stuff. But the point is that there is essentially, a shared community of knowledge, and it goes back, just like our own internet. It goes back over decades.
If you have a top secret clearance, you go on JWICS, you can pretty much go and see whatever is on there, except for special compartmentalized stuff.
Yeah, pretty much, or things that are just. People protect their business processes.
So who would be putting UFO type or UAP videos on there? How does that happen? How do they end up there?
Service members and intelligence officers who, for one reason or another, decided to put that footage there.
What's the first UFO video you see? What'd you think of it? Or military film footage of a UFO. What did you? What was that like?
Well, technically, the first true military footage that I saw was that Tic Tac video and the Go Fast video, and I think there was one other else, the gimbal video that all came out in 2017. Granted, I didn't see those on military systems, but just being precise here.
Yeah.
And so things that I saw after that kind of looked like all that, but just much more duration. The videos, it's the internet, whether it's secret or not, there's compression, there's upload and file sizes. So some things are crystal clear, but it's only 15 seconds. Some things you can see 45 minutes of something moving around, but it's kind of blurry because that's a lot of data.
So you've seen crystal clear at times videos of what appear to be, would you say, non-human intelligence made craft? I mean, what you see evidence that the rest of the world doesn't get to see. Mm-hmm. That starts happening.
Yeah. Nothing in those videos necessarily proves it's extraterrestrial or non-human. It certainly is anomalous, exotic, and unexplainable.
And advanced.
Yes.
Beyond our capabilities that you know of?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it might have been within our capabilities to replicate, even in an inferior manner. Mm-hmm. But quite a lot of it is, it's either something else or we live in a world where we have been left behind.
2017, these stories come out, New York Times and other media. The videos become known. That sparks your curiosity and you start looking around for that kind of stuff, or it would just come across your desk and in front of your eyes naturally?
Yeah, so not looking for that stuff.
Did you have access to live feeds?
Yes.
So live feeds, real time, you could go into like a Reaper drone and see if there's something going on. Not that you're specifically looking for UFOs, but you had access even to live feeds.
Yeah, not anything special, no special access, but you know where those resources are. You can go look at them, and I did.
I want to go back to this. You said with these nuclear facilities, nuclear weapons, nuclear labs, nuclear power plants, that within a year or two, are you saying all of them get visited, or are there some strange phenomena?
I can't say that they all do, but I would suspect that anything that is sufficiently nuclear will draw attention at some point, and they will be encountering this.
And what are they? What are you seeing? What kinds of things are you seeing?
So, nothing too dramatic when it comes to like these facilities. A lot of times it's orbs of, it's hard to always judge the size, but I'd be surprised if it's bigger than a Cessna, probably something somewhere in between. Whether it's white or silverish, or if you're looking through different sensor apparatus, it'll look like whatever hot or cold is. But usually orbs around these facilities. Sometimes things that look a bit more irregular, but the vast majority being orbs.
The world's been exposed to some of this. There's been a clarification to the general public about what are you seeing when you're seeing infrared or FLIR. It takes some translation. There are people that focus on that, like they can read that. But basically, you're looking at things that don't have flight control surfaces, that don't have traditional propulsion. They seem to tag along, which we've heard forever, with nuclear events and that kind of thing, nuclear structure. But you see a lot of these, start getting exposed to them. Just to begin, doesn't that start to kind of feed that curiosity in you? You just all of a sudden, the average person, but you're now seeing stuff that you can't.
Yeah, you have to be a special kind of boring to not be interested after seeing those states. It's shocking, especially knowing the context of what you're looking at.
Right, which you get when you have those systems that can look at that.
100%.
What's the context? What like big picture? Like what's the context?
Yeah, and in this way, you're seeing images. Is there discussion? Is there text that comes along with this? Hey, we saw this thing. What the hell is it? It's not us.
Surprisingly little of that. I think the community kind of knows or knew we don't talk about this. It's there. That changed some years ago, but it's since been, I think, shut down again in terms of community participation in solving the problem.
So people within the intelligence community know you don't talk about this out loud. You don't say the quiet part out loud. You post stuff, you kind of get, then you get an era of discussion when this starts coming forward 2017 New York Times story. But then you're explaining that there's been a kind of clampdown on that dialogue and discussion. I've heard that from a lot of people on the inside. You witnessed that too?
Yes, absolutely. Both firsthand and from, hearing from friends and connections. Yes. The screws were tightened, and certain agencies, you're not allowed to mention certain whistleblowers' names or you'll be fired immediately.
So there's no announcement on the PA system. There's no leaflets left in the cafeteria. No memo put out that says, don't talk about this stuff, but
Yeah. You pick up on that vibe real quick.
When you say there's certain whistleblowers' names you can't mention, this brings me back to a friend of ours when George was doing his news report on Bob Lazar, first time it was going to air, he just said, when he was up at Area 52, he just said, hey, you should pay attention to the news. His career was over. He got pulled into a room the next day. I would call him a friend of ours. I interviewed him about it. That was done. He just mentioned to watch George's news report. Again, we're not equating Bob Lazar to anything, but we were just saying that happened. So what do you mean if you mention certain whistleblowers? Who?
David Grush.
You can't mention David Grush in certain professional settings or you are fucked.
Yeah, if you're not fired, you are in for a very rough time, is my understanding.
Elizondo?
I didn't hear Elizondo as a no-go word.
Saying David Grush testified in open Congress, so that makes sense. So, what have you seen it happen? Have you seen people mention his name? How do you become aware you can't even talk about him?
So that specific example, heard from a friend at that agency. That was essentially the word of mouth from management. Nothing written in paper, nothing in emails, but from what it sounds like, people got a conversation with their leadership and were told as much as we've just gone over. And his name was absolutely, in the first-hand experience, sort of radioactive in the chat rooms. It would either, all of a sudden, these people that never participate are there really slamming him and slamming the people talking about him.
On the classified internet.
Indeed.
Our space is one we've talked about but these where people had open dialogue, it just got a clamp down, and his name was part of that. That's what you meant when you said certain people are radioactive. You can't mention their names.
Right.
Okay.
Clueless.
And good, yeah. We're nuclear. He's radioactive.
Okay.
Different designation. Yeah.
So you're seeing these videos and some limited discussion. You can't really openly talk about it, but you're curious. You're kind of hooked on the topic.
Yeah, and to be clear, 2018, when this first exposure happened, and for about a few years after, it did at least feel more open. Looking back on it, this was probably a counterintelligence prerogative at the time. But it was allowed to exist. The discussion was allowed to exist, and it felt more like, people were excited to finally actually be able to talk about this and finally be able to try to compare notes, figure it out.
Well, it's when the UAP task force was created. They didn't call it that, but it was up and running, and they were trying to make entreaties out to the intelligence community and DOD. Hey, they wanted input from and partners.
So I saw that emerge, and I saw it die.
Mm-hmm. And when you say exposure, we're going to get into this, but you mean, technically it's called spillage. It's when you see something that is of a compartmentalized or nature that you are not specifically cleared to see, and you were exposed to something, and it was like, holy shit, what is this? And the first thoughts of that I'm interested in. So if we're at that point, okay, so let's talk about that. Look, the whole world knows about IMCON, Immaculate Constellation. We're saying that word out loud. At one time, that was very dangerous to say out loud, to write, to text. We should talk about that. But before, this is your gateway. This is the entrance point. What happened? How did it happen? What did you see? What did you think?
Yeah, so the first exposure, or the exposure to Immaculate Constellation, happened on a shared server that was shared by all the offices in OSD. What I was doing at the time was opening files that were clearly misfiled and either sorting them to our offices, part of that server, or putting them in their own box to be sorted by other responsible jobs. I mean, this is more like volunteer duty, but yes.
So because you're a workaholic and you're curious and you read a lot, you come across a file that really is what leads us to being here today. It's the Schreiber file.
Yeah, so it was labeled 2018 Schreiber Wargame might have been brief or something else, but that's it. There's nothing about that screams, it's a very interesting thing. In fact, usually a lot of war game briefs are pretty boring. So there's nothing that stood out about it.
Accidental exposure for you.
100%.
You go into it, and what do you see?
There's just a generic title slide. There's a banner without classification markings that just says Immaculate Constellation. And it has a placeholder slide that shows like the Shriver Air Base logo and some logos of the units involved. But at that time, I believe it would have still been like Air Force Space Command adjacent. So still nothing particularly stunning. I think the name at the top probably just the name of the exercise. So the next slide, though, is where it gets interesting. Because the face of Lou Elizondo is on that next slide, and I was not who I was expecting to see, and it was accompanied by text. To summarize, and please have some grace with me. It's been 7 years, but it was saying that Immaculate Constellation is an unacknowledged special access program established after the exposure of ATIP in 2017 by former USDI officer Lou Elizondo. And that's the gist of that first slide. And so I'm looking at that, and nothing particularly convincing that that's alien related or what the SAP is or what it's doing. So I don't know what to make of this. So I read the whole thing, and it got very interesting very quick.
So it's designated a SAP. This is a SAP. It's sitting on a server maybe it shouldn't be on.
Correct.
Right. So I think that's important. And also it seems like it's just a response to the public spillage or exposure that we saw come forward with people like, and specifically Lou Elizondo. This was like an internal classified response to the fact, oh shit, some of this is out now.
Yeah, that's exactly the tone of those words, of that slide. Mm-hmm. That's the implied order of events that led to being established.
So it was like 2018, maybe.
Yeah, the file was at least last accessed in 2018. I can't remember if it did say, the file creation date or if I looked it up, but I know it was last accessed.
Can you see who's accessed it prior to you?
I can.
And what did you see?
So everyone says that I'm wrong and it's impossible, but the name I recalled at the time thinking, oh, that's odd, was...
Name redacted.
And did you know who that was?
Vaguely. At that time, people are considered superstars in the leadership circles, so you just hear names like that, and that's what her name was.
Why would that be impossible? Why are people now, in retrospect, why are people telling you that would be impossible?
Oh, she wasn't at the Pentagon then.
Mm-hmm.
Where was she? She was at the Pentagon, to my knowledge, but they're saying she wasn't there.
Right.
Interesting.
So, all right. So, Shriver War Games. You keep reading. There's a big slide with Lou Elizondo's face on it. What comes next? I mean, you get a sense that I shouldn't be able to read this here.
No, not yet, actually. No. To be clear, at that point in time, I had no formal training in what SAPs were. There was no SAP marking on this.
See, who is it? See, that's gonna bug the ever-loving shit out of me of who's the redacted name. Like, why do they do that? Whoever it is has a lot of power. There's only one reason why you're keeping somebody's name out. Either you're trying to keep them safe, like this could put their life in danger, or this is going to put my life in danger because they have a lot of swing. And now I'm curious of who it might be. It's a female. She was there at the Pentagon, but the Pentagon is saying she wasn't there. Fascinating.
It's just a name, Immaculate Constellation. The opening slide, just we would call it improperly labeled, improperly classified.
What was it? What did it show?
So the next slide, the third slide about, just jumps straight into the mission of this app and showing what apparently the results of that mission are. And it's a collection incident in the Pacific Ocean. The subject of collection is several Russian naval intelligence vessels in the middle of the ocean at night. And above those vessels is a large black triangle floating in the air. This is a still image, but it is color.
Okay, so that's the first kind of event, but what was the mission? What was the mission? That's what people want to know, is what was the mission of Immaculate Constellation as described in the product?
So in the product itself, you had to piece together the mission by reading the whole thing and kind of putting together the parts. It never spelled out fully, like as it should, the mission of the SAP. And I assume that's because this is a type of brief where there will be inserts to the deck, which would be inserted by the SAP control officer during the briefing that would provide another level of detail. But based on the information included in there and its description, the mission becomes apparent, and that is a bare minimum. It's the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance mission of a global nature for UAPs and RVs, ARVs. The hesitation there is some time has passed. One of those acronyms is in there, either RV or ARV, and that is how the triangle in this case was labeled.
It's been 7 years. So as you're reading through this and that you're remembering RV or ARV just for our audience. So RV is, reverse
reproduction
vehicle.
Yeah.
And the ARV would mean alien, anomalous reproduction.
We see, people in the literature say alien reproduction vehicle. It could just be anomalous,
Advanced.
or advanced. It could be anything that can go after A.
So you don't know what that is. But
I don't.
This is a pretty interesting image here.
It is. Right? And then the text that accompanies it describes the incident.
And what can you tell us about it?
The summary of that is just how it unfolded. I should actually back up and say the image itself was unique. This isn't by a plane or a satellite. It looks to be a image pretty close to the waterline. So something that to me read is we have a clandestine submersible asset close by this fleet, and it's taking pictures, trying to stay unnoticed. And so, yes, in the description, it basically lays out what occurred that night, which was that our collection assets were there in area monitoring Russian naval vessels. Not sure what they're doing there. But they've been hanging out in the middle of the ocean in this place, apparently, for a few days. Keep an eye on them. And this night, while they are observing the Russian vessels, a large black triangle materializes or decloaks or something. The point is it did not move. It appeared directly above these ships, probably no more than 200 meters, pretty close. And interestingly, as noted in the report itself, there was no visible reaction from these vessels from what would almost certainly be considered a hostile approach.
What do you take away from that? They didn't notice it, or they're not upset about it, or they don't know what to do with it, or what?
So the implication also in the text describing it was, the analysis in the text was that the Russian Navy had foreknowledge that this vehicle would appear in that area of the ocean, and they were there specifically to either collect on it themselves or to interact with it in some way.
Any indication that it might be theirs, that they knew it's going to be there because they control it?
Not in that document, and I haven't seen anything to make me think that they controlled that particular craft, but didn't see anything to the contrary either.
I guess it could be that they've seen it before, that there's nothing they can do about it, so don't get excited about it.
Might be, although it is interesting, if it's something that's part of their environment, as it were, why are they making an effort to be in this space at this time to collect on something they already know about?
Is it like in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, it's off the coast of Kamchatka, as I recall, in the Pacific Ocean.
That's what struck me. I mean, my mind goes to the idea that they were kind of camped out, deep kind of ocean in this one specific area durationally. it kind of implies to me, if I'm thinking outside the box here, there's some form of comms or communication with whoever the operators are of this craft. Am I going too far with that idea? Or?
I think it's a reasonable one to have, but it's not one that I can validate.
Yeah, let's be clear. You were exposed to something. We're just touching the basics here. We're theorizing. We're talking about a bunch of stuff we don't know, but the descriptions that you were exposed to kind of give you a little insight that we can at least look at some of those assumptions. Right.
Absolutely. And I'm sure there's a literature out there that can help narrow down.
Mm-hmm.
So Immaculate Constellation, you've never heard this term before, and it doesn't give you the full picture there, but what other additional information did it give about what this was and how it operates?
Just describe the events and that analysis of the event of the Russians having foreknowledge to be there, and describing how the event occurred as I just went over.
So this is a page turner. So you're interested. Yeah,
you're curious now.
Absolutely.
What do you do next? What do you
go to the next page? And it was disappointing because we get into a couple slides of orbs, and I had already seen orbs at this point in an official setting.
So the next pages show orbs from different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like the pattern is that under this Immaculate Constellation, they're gathering UAP images from all over the place.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the core of it, right? Is the idea that we collect data on these UAP, and someone needs to bring them, collate them together to provide intel to who needs it. And we're assuming, or not assuming, it's been pretty laid out, the Immaculate Constellation was a kind of place to bring everything together to provide those briefings to senior leadership. Is that correct?
I don't know about to provide briefings, but definitely to collect data from the military intelligence enterprise specifically,
mm-hmm.
and the sensors associated with that. And yes, to collect that data, centralize it, and have it there for presumably both analysis and operational needs.
Mm-hmm.
The Schreiber War Games document with the images, 12 pages, 15 pages, somewhere in there?
Yeah, I'd say 12 to 15, but probably more like 12.
And is that the only document you ever saw where the term Immaculate Constellation was used?
Until I wrote one, yeah.
We'll get into that. But instead of go through people will be so curious. So what comes on the fourth page? Talk us through the pages. Just go ahead.
On the next episode of Weaponized.
When I was in USDI, I read the transcripts of Sean Kirkpatrick briefing Senator Rubio, Senator Warren, and Senator Gillibrand on the results of his investigation in his congressionally tasked Arrow report. I read these transcripts once.
Let me go ahead. Let's find. Here's part 2. We're going to get this pulled up.
In part 2 of our interview with the author of the Immaculate Constellation report.
So the idea that it could have been a war game, could it have been something, some of these UFOs that have been seen over nuclear missile bases, silos and things of that sort, the implication has been, as with drones, that it's a readiness test of some sort.
If that had been the only thing I had seen and none of the rest of this saga had happened,
right,
we wouldn't be talking. And I go and I have the meeting with Sissy, give them the paper, including the various compartments and programs that they could themselves look into to access the same information that I saw, which is ridiculous that Congress has no access to. When I was in USDI, I read the transcripts of Sean Kirkpatrick briefing Senator Rubio, Senator Warren, and Senator Gillibrand on the results of his investigation in his congressionally tasked Arrow report. And those transcripts, which were supposed to be open kimono, here's the truth, Mr. Senator, Mrs. Senator, Sean Kirkpatrick absolutely distorted.
Saying what? What did he say that was a lie?
I read these transcripts once and immediately knew that
Veiled threat?
No, I knew that I was now something else. I had inside knowledge into the deception of our government by elements of our intelligence community.
Ba-ba-ba. Hold up. What's going on here? Also, that was just the ads word. Here we go. This
In
is
part 2 of our interview with the author of the Immaculate Constellation report.
So the idea that it could have been a war game, could it have been something, some of these UFOs that have been seen over nuclear missile bases, silos and things of that sort, the implication has been...
The second and third examples were less interesting to me, but, they are images of orbs transiting from coastal facilities out to the ocean, and sort of describing, what those facilities were, as I think the unspoken implication of why something like this would be out there. And yes, just a similar, or just a not vague, but a general description of, we observed this coming from this direction or from where this sensitive facility was, left over the ocean. This was our tasked asset, and it happened on this date.
Anything really striking in the rest of that document that really highlighted to you? Anything else in that document is really striking?
Yeah. So the last example of the 4 was back to Russia again. This time, I believe, in the Atlantic Ocean, and it shows another Russian intelligence vessel underway. This time at night. The image is green infrared. And it shows above this Russian vessel another black triangle, but whereas the first example in the Pacific was an equilateral, large, pretty stunning object that was of comparable size to the vessels below it. This was definitely smaller. It was smaller than the vessel, and it was more angular in shape and sort of swept back. And it was also accompanied by text saying that there was no indication that the Russian vessel was responding in any way to this ship hovering above it. It did not describe in this instance whether it had miraculously appeared or if it was tailing the ship.
But triangular in shape and hovering.
Well, hovering probably matching speed, though, too, with the ship.
Like USS Russell, other people argue, and I don't care what shape it is, when you have something with rangefinders off of a ship that goes with it, stops with the ship, continues. So this is not a new thing, this idea of triangular by angle of observation, pyramid in shape, some would say.
Could be.
You're right. So that's striking, and you saw that too.
Yes. Yeah, and that was the last example. After that was sort of a summary slide or two about just recapping the fact that these incidents we are collecting these incidents around the world. That we are focused on UAP RV collection incidents by tasked and untasked assets, and the collection and analysis of those data streams.
So sometimes we know where it's going to be, tasked assets. Sometimes we just happen to capture them untasked assets.
Correct. Okay. Correct. And I think a good example is in that brief itself, where the orb incidents appeared to be untasked assets. They were not there to collect on orbs. They were there to collect on something else. And they happened to catch something. Whereas the 2 Russian incidents, we were there to watch the Russians and the Russians' interactions with this technology.
Wow.
So your suspicions after seeing this 12-page report is that these are freeze frames of what are
videos. Yeah.
Videos. So somewhere there's a bigger collection of this stuff that's also very interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. There was informal collections of this stuff by interested people on the systems, and there's absolutely professional mission tasked databases for this.
Okay, so you've seen, now you've had this exposure. You try to do the right thing, and you take great steps to try to do. It takes a little while for you.
It does.
So explain that to me, what you tried to do. So there you go. You see something that shouldn't be there on that archive. What happens? What do you do?
Absolutely nothing. In fact, the first time I read that, I don't know what I just read and if it's even real. Maybe somebody just made this thing.
Okay, well, explain that. So it would be like a joke or something?
Or they put it together literally for a war game, right?
Mm-hmm.
They maybe created an imaginary program that maybe they wanted to have, right? Or a desired capability, or something that was representative of the true thing to be used.
Is that normal or common though? That's a weird thought. Like,
it is a weird thought, but this is what's going through my head because it's so bizarre.
Okay.
And
you're like, no way.
Yeah. I'm going through everything, all the options why it's not what it is.
Right.
Yeah. And so I do nothing for some time. And then we, our office gets a training on or a refresh training, but this was new in my career. So my first time on what to do in cases of spillage for SAP material. Okay. And I realized, well, no matter how weird this is, this has all the hallmarks of what you guys just said is a big fucking deal. Yeah. So, I can either pretend like I didn't open and read this thing 80 times and hope that IT doesn't notice that either, or I can report it myself. So I did that, or I tried to do that.
You tried to report it. You read it a bunch because it's fascinating, and then you try to report it. So what does that look like when you try to report that? What'd you do?
So the first time I went just quietly to my immediate supervisor, a retired Army colonel. So
you go to your supervisor, superior.
Mm-hmm. What I gotta say, hey, I gotta show you something in our closet. Our whole office is a skiff, but inside the skiff is another tiny skiff. Mm-hmm. And I think we have like a spillage thing, so I need to show it to you because this is apparently what we're supposed to do: show it to your boss. And then follow the reporting chain, and you sign a paper, and that's how it's supposed to be handled, all by the books.
And they just trained you on it, and you're like, okay, here's what I'm supposed to do.
Right, exactly. So I try to follow that while also being, quiet about it. Take him in, and he's like, okay, so show me what you found. I pull up that slide, and the first slide, just because it's so generic, gets no reaction. But then going to maybe the second slide, or even the third slide, he's just like, okay, stop, stop. Did you read this? And I don't answer, but I just look him in the eye and I look at the screen, and I'm like, of course I'm reading this.
That's how you know it exists.
And he definitely picked up on that. And he, the conversation ended with him saying, delete it. And he left the room, and we never spoke of it again.
He's cutting you some slack there, in essence.
Without me knowing, yes.
Yeah. You didn't read it, so you're not in any trouble. That's ended here.
Delete it.
And also, as I came to learn, certain material you get exposed to, and you're kind of marked for life that happened, and it's probably not good for your career at a minimum.
We've seen other whistleblower friends of ours have experiences like that. They're marked.
Yeah. Didn't realize that at the time. So that happened. I sit on that for a few days. Didn't sit right with me because I'm still thinking well, that's not what we're supposed to do. I could do that. But supposedly everything we do on those systems, every click, every keystroke is monitored. So I need to self-preservation. I need to keep doing the right thing here. Yeah. So I go to his boss, or his boss's boss. I change my approach. I don't say what it is. I don't show it to them. I don't print it out. And I just say, ma'am, we have a spillage incident. I believe it's SAP material. Could you please provide guidance on how to handle this? And so through that, I was connected to our parent office's special access program control officer. Mm-hmm. Had a meeting set up to go meet with them a few days later. That happened. I go to that meeting in a SAP-F, so where this material is supposed to be stored and handled. And this person says, okay, show me the material. So I sit down.
Round two.
Right, exactly.
Round two, you're showing the material.
I sit down, I pull it up. It's right there at the top of the shared server. So I'm not it's almost instant, it's right there. I pull it up, I start scrolling through it from the bottom. I get no reaction. Then he says, okay, let me look at it. He takes my chair. He goes through, he scrolls through it. No reaction on his face. I'm watching him very closely at this point because I'm exceptionally curious about all of this. No reaction. Then he scrolls through it again, and he makes a very deliberate scene where he pauses on Lou Elizondo's slide and starts guffawing in a very non-believable way and saying, somebody's having a joke. You don't need to worry about this. You can go. And that's not the reaction I was expecting. I was expecting to, at the very least, sign a paper, right, saying, this incident happened, reported it, signed it, it's done. So, I try to ask him, like, are you sure? Like, do I need to sign anything? He's like, nope, you can go. And so I left that room and never, ever had anything about that incident come up again.
Except immediately you went and checked again for the file.
Yeah, I went upstairs and I went to see what had happened, and it was gone.
So the idea that it could have been a war game, could it have been something, some of these UFOs that have been seen over nuclear missile bases, silos and things of that sort, the implication has been, as with drones, that it's a readiness test of some sort. We're going to put some secret operation, unexpected, and see how people and systems react to it. Could that have been what was going on here?
Yeah, I mean, it is something that, on the surface level appears plausible. I do not believe that to be the case, given the circumstances of how it was located, the fact that hundreds of people had access to that system, the fact of its generic labeling. It wasn't, there's no red flags on that to draw any fish to the bait, as it were, to catch somebody. And then the process of reporting it, there's no outcome from that, besides apparently making a lot of people pissed off and worried and kind of scared.
And let me add to that, something that we noticed, and I believe it's true reporting, which is that when David Grush testified, Immaculate Constellation, before the world ever knew those words, was searched on Google a ton. Additionally, over the research and time and sources that we have, it has been confirmed to us under no uncertain terms that that was the name of a program with that nature. So if we're looking at it as like a LARP kind of thing, we get to the point where there's too many outside confirmation after the fact, as well as that. Yeah.
If that had been the only thing I had seen and none of the rest of this saga had happened,
right,
we wouldn't be talking.
Totally.
You wrote in a paper that was submitted to Congress, and we'll go to a lot of details in that, but that this was deeply disturbing overall. Why was it disturbing to you?
Yeah, so as time passed, it became disturbing, especially after the sort of the process of Grush coming forward left a wake on the inside too. People were tracking that who weren't even involved, but were able to see sort of the distortions on the inside.
Distortions of truth.
Exactly, but also, bureaucracies and offices behaving weirdly around this subject, and sort of the movements for reaching out to Congress to get legislation drafted that eventually became that Intelligence Authorization Act and that first NDAA where they provided whistleblower protections. I think that was one of the moments that really started to convince me that this was not under our government's control.
That's a core of why we're talking today.
Yes.
What do you mean?
Just on an emotional level and blunt analysis, why the hell is Congress passing a law asking for UFO insiders from the intelligence and military community to come talk to them directly under amnesty about something that doesn't exist, isn't an issue? And if it does exist and is an issue, but it's secret, apparently our most sensitive congressional committees are not briefed on this.
Yeah, I find it at the core disturbing you having Arrow even ask for whistleblowers to come forward to them, having Congress asking for whistleblowers to come under amnesty to come to them. Yeah, something's rotten with that.
And then also at the same time seeing the sort of UAP task force and its slow death on the inside, and the death of the sort of open exchange of ideas and problem solving going on was another data point that pointed to something rotten. Mm-hmm. And the last one that really sealed it and really convinced me that I need to find a way to bring this to Congress, no matter how small it might be, it apparently matters. Mm-hmm. Was when I was in USDI, I read the transcripts of Sean Patrick briefing Senator Rubio, Senator Warren, and Senator Gillibrand on the results of his investigation in his congressionally tasked Arrow report. And those transcripts, which were supposed to be open kimono, here's the truth, Mr. Senator, Mrs. Senator. Sean Kirkpatrick absolutely distorted, downplayed, and can't prove it, but I would say outright lied to the people who have direct responsibility for him.
Saying what? What did he say that was a lie?
So it's more of a lie of the whole
Big picture.
the big picture, right? In the meeting, it's, Congressman Rubio, we've heard about this incident. We just don't have enough data to go on it to really know what this is. We don't have any way of really figuring out what's going on. It could just be an anomaly. In fact, it's most likely an anomaly. So starting with an acknowledgement that, here, you have some data, but we have the insight and the scientific expertise to make you feel at ease.
Nothing to see here, folks. Move along.
Exactly. Although there was also political discussion involved and historic discussion. And I read these transcripts once and immediately knew that
Veiled threat?
No, I knew that I was now something else. I had inside knowledge into the deception of our government by elements of our intelligence community. My blood ran cold at a specific point in that transcript where Mr. Rubio is discussing the legacy program. This was a subject of direct discussion with Sean Kirkpatrick in these meetings. And based on Mr. Kirkpatrick's replies about as vague as they were, but unable to escape the truth of the legacy program, Mr. Rubio's response was, well, what the hell is the executive branch doing? Have they been running this for 60 years without congressional oversight? I might be paraphrasing a little, but that's near enough verbatim. And I saw that line, and I basically closed that file and had a pretty sleepless night.
All right. You said your blood ran cold, meaning you're pissed, you're spooked.
Scared.
What is scared? Scared for your country.
I just think in general, it's like I don't know, there was nothing associated. It was just like immediate, oh, fuck.
Good response.
Yeah.
I mean, you now know this is real. This is a cover-up. They are lying about this stuff.
Yeah, at that point, I definitely knew the phenomenon was absolutely real. I knew we were tracking it. I knew we had lots of resources on it for some time. But getting to that final step in the ladder, it's like, oh, and the cover-up is real, and it's inside the house.
Give us a sense of it. You read one document that said Immaculate Constellation, and it had some images with it. What additional information did you come across that reinforced your belief that there is a big surveillance program collecting this stuff?
Well, I mean, one is just the fact of its existence, right? In the brief, it's talking about the general mission. It's giving examples, but it's clearly talking about a collection mission. And then there's programs that have since become public. The most relevant one in this case is the NRO Sentient program that kind of, at least in the open source way, demonstrates how you don't need a massive workforce to do this anymore. You don't need buildings without windows for acres to people taking this information and sanitizing it, making it sure it gets to the right people without the wrong things in it. And that's just on the inside.
Right. Like you don't also need exposure to a bunch of human beings with individual egos and identities. To be clear, there's kind of AI siphoning off of data and information to keep it compartmentalized without spying of human eyes, even within our intelligence agencies, if I'm understanding it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a Janus, a two-faced god. It takes things in one end and makes sure you hear what you need to hear out the other.
Right. And you suspect that UAP, when that data is collected and brought in and ingested, that there is a whitewashing, or not whitewashing of it, there's a clarifying of that stuff to make sure the general people in the intelligence community don't see it.
Absolutely. And that's a long-standing practice especially for imagery intelligence. Nothing about UFOs. Back in the Cold War days, if a facility or an aerospace platform was seen that, was collected, there would be there'd be a full version, right, for those who needed it. But if you just needed to see the facility, but maybe not the plane, those would be manually excised. Now we have tools to do that for us.
Could you describe then for us how you think this works? whatever the name for it is now, how it works.
Well,
Did we have an AI system in 2018 that could do what we're describing?
Well, we know we did. Those documents have since become public.
Right.
Sentient.
Right.
And the fact that Sentient was operational at those dates of the documents mean it was operational for years before then, years before 2018.
You know, we've had our conversations, private and otherwise, about this kind of an operation. And it just seems like, gosh, there should be somebody who's collecting all this information and studying it and trying to figure it out. And the fact that it goes into the executive branch somewhere, if that's what happens to it, good. I'm glad somebody's doing it. Why is that, as you've learned about it, why is that not necessarily a good idea? Is it because it's not maybe really within the executive branch, that it's an entity unto itself?
Why it may not be a good idea to censor our intelligence products that are circulated within our cleared community to our service members that are on the front lines every day is because you are blinding them to their environment. You are opening them to threats. You're exposing them to risks. And you are essentially inhibiting the pursuit of national security objectives by doing so. There's a reason you guys have talked to so many whistleblowers from the military who see these things. That's partially because they're reporting it, they feel endangered by it, and nothing is being done, and no answers are being given. And they are, in some cases, suffering legitimate injuries.
These images that would pop up here and there on some system, on some platform, this AI program that was once called Immaculate Constellation, it would grab them, take them away, and then they're gone from those platforms, those places. So like CIA or something.
Yeah, I believe where it could, the data was ingested essentially in a stovepipe, right? It's locked off. It goes into the black box, and then a product comes out for what you're cleared to see and what you have a need to know to see.
Wouldn't somebody say, "Hey, where's my image that I recorded?" And then where'd it go?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who have had incidents like that. We also have to remember there's a lot of surveillance and reconnaissance platforms. Not all of these are controlled by military or national intelligence. And I believe a lot of what was, circulated for some time among the community was people at combatant commands or with operational units. They had their own platforms, essentially. They control that data to a large degree, and they were able to decide that it goes on JWICs, not into the black box.
Right. So I've heard this over and over and over, that there are these pipelines of communication, let's say overseas to CENTCOM, but there's a squeezing point, there's a narrowing point where stuff doesn't get where it's intended to get, and that's been a problem operationally, especially when it comes to UAP stuff. People have tried to track and follow what they've submitted, and it didn't get where it needed to. It's been siphoned off. To be clear, Immaculate Constellation is not an AI scrubbing program. Just so our audience understands that. We've described what Immaculate Constellation is, but that is an element we suspect from the literature and knowledge of what is public, that there is that capability to scrub instead of like airbrushing out UFOs from NASA or something.
And part of the way of knowing what this is knowing who, in the DoD at least, has primary responsibility over SAPs. OSD policy really only has control over operational SAPs and logistical SAPs. Then you will have OSD research and engineering and acquisition sustainment. They will have your science and technology SAPs. They're the people who they're the gatekeepers for that world. And then you'll have your intelligence, or USDI in this case, their SAPs and CAPs. And those are intelligence SAPs. They are the primary keepers of that. So the implication there is that if OSD policy is being briefed on that, Immaculate Constellation is a parent SAP, not for a specific platform, but for a mission.
I think the core of this for me is, at one point, Matt realized, holy shit, this is real, this is a problem, and people are being lied to. People that need to know the truth, that it's being siphoned off outside of control of what should be our representative government. And let me know if I'm saying anything that's wrong from your perspective, but I think there's a point that he hits, like you and I have hit. We're being fucking lied to, and it's becoming dangerous. Your first sentence in the report that we fought to get on congressional record, we'll get into that. We fought for that together. This document is a result of a multi-year internal investigation into the subject of unidentified anomalous phenomena. That first sentence in your report that we fought to get into congressional record for a reason. So basically, your blood goes cold. You're like, oh, fuck. And then you do a multi-year internal investigation. Explain that. It's your first sentence. What'd you do?
At the time of that knowledge, I was still in the Pentagon, but I was not a whistleblower. My investigation at that point was in the pursuit of my duties in countering WMD. Also, my professional curiosity.
You went deep.
Well, the report is 7 categories of evidence, right? Mm-hmm. Immaculate Constellation is the attention grabber, but it's the one where there's the least amount of detail.
Right.
So I basically conducted my own amateur all-source analysis of what the U.S. government, specifically the DoD, because that's what I had access to, knew about UAPs, and I collected that information and sought out a way to go to Congress because they asked and provided amnesty for whistleblowers. If they did not want that, they should not have written that into a law.
Right. They said they did, and you started to go down that path, and that's our kind of next step is you're seeking whistleblower protection. Okay, so now you realize you got to do something, and you feel compelled. I think we understand why he feels compelled. It's dangerous. You seek whistleblower protection officially. Is that the next step, or what's the next step?
The next step is to figure out how to even get to Congress.
Okay.
And actually a little bit before that to figure out, like, am I even needed?
Okay.
Because at this point, the legislation was there, but Grush was not.
Mm-hmm.
I was aware of people on the inside, some of whom have since become public, some who have not, who at the very least shared a interest in this getting a wider exposure in the intelligence community. Mm-hmm. So I started talking to people in that world, mm-hmm. And trying to quietly figure out, what's the state of play? Is what I have valuable or needed?
Right. Do I need to go forward? Right.
So there was a long feeling out period there. Lots of mistakes made, but those were mistakes born of risk because, there's no channels for this. There's no official process.
Uncharted territory.
And I'm literally in the belly of the beast.
Immaculate Constellation, you begin to get the sense that it is, in fact, a constellation with a lot of individual stars or stovepipes underneath it. Could you describe that structure, what you learned, and how you learned it?
So that's just more of a nature of SAPs, apparently,
right.
Learning and how they're constructed, and especially how the internal security for SAPs is run. I think you guys have reported on it that the budget for security is much higher than the budget for the actual research on this. And that is there's very real world effects, as I came to learn.
Describe those. For example, you're telling us that you realize the guys you're working for are lying.
Yeah.
Do you start to feel marked because of your interest in this, or do you make mistakes that put you in somebody's crosshairs?
So there was no indication that anything untoward was thought about me. Nope. As far as I knew, nobody even knew I was interested in this stuff.
You feel a sense of duty. Congress needs to know. They've been lied to specifically. People tell you, yeah, this is an important piece to the puzzle. And you felt a sense of patriotic duty to do that. And so you took steps to that. You said, cool, they're going to give me whistleblower protections. I am a whistleblower. What happened? How did you do that? What were the steps?
So I had to find them. There was no way that I could find to get into contact with Congress. I tried.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started talking to other people who were at that time more vocal about their intent to be a whistleblower to Congress.
Internally more vocal.
Yes.
On classified systems.
Yes. Or in not so much on systems, but in classified facilities, mm-hmm. verbal conversations.
Gotcha.
So met one person who did go forward, kind of watched that person without letting them know what I knew to see, what they were doing and how it went for them. At that time, it just seemed to be, the report was, I went in, talked with the staff. The staff then had a separate meeting to talk with the member, and there's no paperwork, no lawyers involved. It's just, you're in, you say what you have to say, and you're out.
That's the channel, no repercussion. That's what they said. We know all of those people as well.
The assumption, there's not a SOP written out.
Mhm.
You know, this is what I'm learning
And you
and what
went,
observing.
and you told them what you know
Correct.
officially.
Yeah, the first meeting, I wouldn't say I was especially transparent. Going in, remember, I knew my bosses were lying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to a permanent member of the Senate staff, not a member, an elected representative. I don't know what their agenda
Could have been
is.
bait. You would have been careful. It could have been bait.
So I shared, the attention grabber, the IMCON story, and slowly worked my way around those other categories of evidence, but left it at I got more to say, but we should probably, do you want me to say more? Like, what comes next? So that meeting was had. I spoke to that person in the SCIF in the Hart Senate office building. I signed my name on the log, my true name on the logbook on August 17th.
We've been into that SCIF. George signed that log as well.
So unless that page goes missing, it's there.
Yep. You got balls like church bells, man. I mean, going in there and doing this uncharted territory, you're just trying to do the right thing. I can kind of feel it, that that's a difficult thing, and you did it, and you went in.
Yeah,
What
I
happens
don't
next?
know who to trust then either.
Right.
So what happens next is I'm told, okay, so we're going to set you up. To be clear, I spoke to a staff member from CISI. I was told that next you'll speak to a staff member from SASC, and then we will have a meeting with both SASC and CISI with the elected members of Congress there and the two people and the staffers that I spoke to. That's what's supposed to happen.
Right.
So I feel a little better leaving this meeting, actually. The person I interacted with seemed very genuine, took my concerns for safety very seriously, and perhaps oddly, but it was somewhat comforting, seemed to know more than me. Because at that point, I hadn't really met anyone who at least willingly was going to answer questions and seemed like they knew even a degree of what I knew at the time. So yeah, I felt like, okay, we're on track. There's a process here. Congress actually is getting this under control. I'll have these meetings and it's, I get a handshake, maybe a nice little thank you. And I feel like I did my duty and I can get back to my career.
They're asking you to come forward and you do it.
So none of those meetings ever happen. Weeks go by, I reach out. Hey, is this going on? Like, I told you I had more. I want to give that more to you so I don't have it. When can we meet? Got the runaround. And then eventually the blunt reply, like, you either send me what you have in writing here on this non-official channel, or, you don't. And we don't need it. So I sent that extra information. And then for many months, I thought, I'm done.
It's disillusioning, isn't it? That the Congress has made a show of this. Hey, we want the information. We're going to pass this legislation, protect whistleblowers, come on in, tell us this stuff. And then the channels really don't work.
I came to be disillusioned. At the time, I just, I came to believe like, okay, I had something that was of minor importance. I'm just really not important enough to talk to anymore. So you're the little guy. Shut up. We don't need you anymore.
We're also
move on.
Just the fear, right? The fear that you're trying to do the right thing, the sensitive topic. People are lying. Who do you trust? And all of a sudden, you do what they say. There's got to be fear there. Like, oh shit, should I have opened my mouth?
Yeah. But I think at that point, though, it was mostly hurt. I still thought like,
I guess I'm too small,
small. And I guess you guys got this already. When I talked, to be clear, David Grush had just spoken the month before or right before then. I was clear like, hey, this meeting's been in the work for months. I saw David Grush's testimony. I don't even know if you need what I have anymore.
Right.
This guy seems to have it all. But yeah, they still wanted to talk.
Right.
Did there come a time then when you start physically meeting with other people who are sort of like whistleblowers, or at least making sounds like whistleblowers?
Yeah. So that came about. The person who connected me to Congress started trying to make a network of people in the IC and the military. For what ends, it was kind of vague, but it was more of at least a community of interest, maybe looking towards like a group of current and former national security employees that can, be a resource that Congress can call on to either like, speak or just to like make a statement, you know.
Legit, getting organized.
Yeah, you got to be thinking, well, look, I'm going to go hear from some other people, see what their experience has been like. Maybe I'm not doing this right, and there's another way to do it.
Well, I mean, at that point, I had accepted that, you know, they didn't need my information. I didn't feel like there was anything left to do. Now I'm back at, well, I just want to know what's going on. These are the people like me, sort of.
Did you have to tell your bosses, hey, I'm under whistleblower protection, allegedly. I went and whistleblowed. Did you have to tell your bosses at your normal job?
No, I did not tell my bosses. At this point in time, I was at the Department of State when I was a whistleblower, to be very clear. I was a whistleblower when I was a Department of State employee when I reached out to Congress, and I was a Department of State employee when I spoke to Congress. So I get another job within FFRDC. I was going to work at DIHQ doing nuclear force planning. Pretty cool job.
Yeah.
And then last minute, a job posting goes up from the Department of State, and I'm told about it. I kind of knew some of the people at the State Department program. So that was a bit of a draw. If I feel like I need some protection, this could work out well in the long term. So at the time, it was kind of self-interest there. Whereas if I need to, cover my ass and write something and have it not be redacted, this is a good place to do it.
That's pre-planning, right? And that comes from a sense of a worry, a sense of fear in a way. Like, you have to protect yourself. State Department's a good place. You're already thinking ahead. You're not doing pre-pub so you can write a book or be in a movie. You're doing pre-pub to protect your ass.
You got a new job at the State Department. You have in the back of your mind, look, if I decide to take it a step further, this is a good place to do that.
Right.
What's your job at State Department, and did you like it?
Yeah, so my job was on paper sort of similar to what I had done at the Pentagon, working in countering WMD.
It's a cool job. Why was it cool?
So the State Department one was mainly the draw. I mean, is to travel, and is to travel to countries that I wanted to. In my case, in Europe, you're interacting with universities, industry groups, government sort of associations. Much more slower speed, much less dark and grim and in the real world, as it were.
Was there ever a period where you're thinking, maybe I'm just leaving this UAP stuff behind me? And
no.
You were hooked. You were done.
Well, I mean, the subject matter, obviously, and then knowing what I knew about the situation in government, I don't think it's something that, you have that level of knowledge that you can leave behind.
Morally, you couldn't.
Yeah, morally, also it's still to this day is endlessly fascinating.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But my job would have nothing to do with that. And it felt like at this point, again, I had not gone to Congress, but I had met people who either were going to or had. Felt like, okay, it's handled. People more senior than me who have connections and know what they're talking about, or they got this, so I can rest easy.
Let it go.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you read the transcripts of Sean Kirkpatrick speaking to the senators? Was that at the State Department?
No, that was at USDI.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out at what point you decided, all right, I tried to go to Congress. Obviously, you knew that Arrow wasn't the way to go. So you had to make a decision at some point.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to take some action some way.
Yeah, so the NDAA language comes out. I recognize how serious that is. I'm talking with these people, even though now I'm at states, I'm still tracking what's going on, and start getting the scuttlebutt that, somebody big is going to come forward. And, the implications of what they had to say are like not good. And they're making these people who are more senior than me feel or talk about like, that there's corruption involved, that there is criminal conspiracy involved. Nothing is being whispered, but things start to feel like, oh, maybe this isn't so just a Cold War black program that was allowed to go on for too long, and now it's just coming in from the cold, all nice and cute, like something much darker.
Right.
You see people like Dave Grush come forward and get slimed. That there are other whistleblowers who have come forward bits and pieces. You have to realize at some point there's a lot of risk in taking action.
Yeah, I mean, I went forwards in such close proximity to Grush that I didn't have, or at that time, I hadn't observed, the blowback. It looked like from the outside that, he had some friction on his way there, but it looked like he got to Congress, was saying the right things, and Congress was going to do something about it.
Momentum.
There was momentum, and I was already in talks to go talk to Congress. Just at that point, not so much out of fear and desperation, just as they're asking for people. It seems like they need it.
Right.
No matter how small, it seems like it's important. And this person told me it was important. This person I met with one-on-one. I told them about this USAP, which at the time, still to myself, I was like, I don't know if it's real or not.
Mm-hmm.
You say you've been to Congress and you know these things firsthand. Like, is this it? He said it was.
Mm-hmm.
So have those interactions that we've already been over. Where do things start going for me? What's the phrase here? More serious.
Mm-hmm.
Is after Congress, after speaking to Congress as a whistleblower, I continued to interact with this person who was trying, or at least they told me they were trying to start a fund for whistleblowers to help get people out of the legacy program who wanted to speak but couldn't because they're both afraid for their life and their livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, there's something I can help with. Good at writing paper. We'll make this organization and I can contribute there. And so the honeymoon phase of, I spoke my piece and now it looks like I'm helping the good guys and things aren't that serious continues after August of 2023. The result of Grush and all that, we get the UAP Disclosure Act, or the attempt to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when that failed, was the first blow to that hope that things would be handled constitutionally.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a point at which you see, let's call it the whistleblower community, a fairly small group of people who have different stories, that you become disillusioned with them and with their media contacts who are being fed bits and pieces of information?
Now, yes, then no. There also wasn't as much media penetration or connection, whatever you want to term it, in those circles, at least that I was, a part of.
In those days, did you consider going to no?
No, I had no outreach, no connections to media, and I was not pursuing connections to media at all.
And, to be fair, you're kind of navigating all of this stuff. You're seeking advice from people, trying to figure out, what do I do? And you're a smart guy, and you look at the world and you start reaching out to a couple people, or they're being introduced to you, like myself, and you're kind of feeling it out too. Like, what is the best path forward here?
Yeah.
That's
so sort of what happens next is the UAP DA fails.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, we get word it's going to fail.
Right.
And this person tells me that Congress needs people to start fires to try to save the UAP DA. I ask him, are you serious? Is Congress has told you to ask people to make some noise and try to save this thing? That person told me yes. And so then I started trying to find some media personalities who could potentially be trusted. One of my next steps, which was, well, now I got to get something cleared. But then set back in a different way, which was, well, shit, we still have all these people apparently who are in danger. There's no help from the government. There's no help from Congress. There's no help from Arrow. There's no help from people who say they care about humanity, but their actions don't bear that out. So back to square one. And for me, square one is going back and re-engaging with Congress. So I reach out in that, I guess this would be winter of 24, 23, around there, back to my sissy connection. And that person, I learned, had since moved on, and he connected me to the current current staff member for Sissy who's handled this. arranged a meeting in a few months because I told them, hey, I'm going to just, first of all, I asked like, hey, did you get any of my testimony? The answer was no, or at least that was the claimed answer. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, did you get any notes? Like, I know he took notes. Did you get notes of what I said? Nah. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to write this all up for you guys. So you have it and you can't lose it. And you're going to guarantee to me that this is not just going to stay with Sissy. It is going to go to Sask, and it is going to go to Hask, and it is going to go to HIPSI, like it was promised before, but never did.
Those acronyms meaning for the Senate committees and the House committees that would deal with these classified sensitive stuff.
You're like, fuck this.
I'm writing it all down.
Writing it down.
I'm going to make it really your problem.
Right.
And you gave me amnesty.
Right.
You want this? I'm giving it to you.
Right.
So I spend some weeks laboriously typing this out. Hidden drives on encrypted drives using open source software, only opening it when I know I'm not connected to anything on a new device. Not a very fun drafting process.
Right.
And that's just the technical aspects of trying to be secure about it. At this point, and I'm definitely under no illusions that the U.S. government in some capacity knows about me. I'm mainly concerned about foreign intelligence, and their possibility of collecting on me. I'm in D.C., spy capital of the world. I was very concerned about that and wanted to do even the writing of this the correct way. So during that time, draft this. I observe what's going on, continues to go on. The final death of UAP Disclosure Act 1 and the attempt to get the second one, which is totally watered down and not even worth our time to consider. And I go and I have the meeting with Sissy, give them the paper. It's a much longer version of the report, both in my analysis and the level of detail, additional detail in the evidentiary sections, including the various compartments and programs that they could themselves look into to access the same information that I saw, which is ridiculous that Congress has no access to. Gave all that to them. Then really had to press to even get to speak to Sask. Eventually got to speak to Sask permanent staff at, I believe, the Rayburn office building. Then after I had met with both Sissy and Sask, after I met with Sissy, but before I finally met with Sask, I submitted a version of this report to the State Department because after I gave it to them the first time, they said, thank you very much. And then never heard again. Didn't even.
I mean, they're asking for you.
Going on.
They're asking for you to come in. They're asking for this, and you're
so I decided
to kick open doors.
Exactly.
Right now. Yeah.
Please take this.
Exactly. So I decided to make myself a little dangerous and said, hey, I'm going to submit this for pre-pub review. And I'm going to brief my leadership at State Department on this, which I did. And I then, after briefing them, I submitted it to pre-pub review. And at the State Department, met with Sask, provided a copy of the full report, and at that time, the cleared one, before that ever reached any media sources, so that they knew what the media would see before anyone else. Doing what I thought was only fair. You're our leaders. You want control. You want this to go the right way. I'm giving you full insight into what my words are. You can tell me at any time to stop or what to change in my words. Nothing.
Transparent, but also you ain't fucking around anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
No pushback at all.
None, except for not after the House meeting, never getting access to House at that time.
You make this,
and no access to members still.
And that's where we start a process. But
right. So you make the submission, you get an answer back.
Yep.
What's it say?
I get no redactions requested, and essentially a one sentence answer. You may proceed.
not exactly something that gives you a lot of confidence at all as well. But I mean, it sounds like they're saying, go ahead, we have no problem with it.
Yeah. I mean, we have the emails. You can read between the lines and also the tone. Certainly nobody there was thrilled about what I was doing.
Right. But they weren't stopping you. And, a lot of people hear about dossier and that kind of thing. And this is a very interesting way to go about it. You get pre-pub through State Department, which later Sean Kirkpatrick, when it became public, made some disparaging comments about what gets passed through when it comes to going through State Department. Doesn't matter. Basically, it's a process for you to cover your ass and inform everybody and say, I'm not messing around. Here we go. And you get it all written out. You get approved and one sentence, email back that we've seen, and you don't have high level of confidence, right? Of like, well, what does that mean? Can I move forward? So there you are. What happens next?
I fly out to California and I meet with Michael Schellenberger.
In part 3 of our interview with the author of the Immaculate Constellation report.
What is it like to have absolute knowledge that not only UFOs are real, that we've been hiding that our government
In the
has.
third and final part of our interview with Matthew Brown, the author of the Immaculate Constellation report.
The submission of this report onto the congressional record and its announcement caught people by surprise. Its distribution was...
Just a quick reminder, we are on now part 3 of this interview. When part 3 is over, any of you who are watching now or come across this later on YouTube and Facebook, you will be cut off from the live stream. You will not get to see what's coming after we finish watching this interview. Because when this interview is over, we are going to be reading the Immaculate Constellation report in this live stream. But it's only going to be available to viewers on Rumble and Locals. So if you're not on Rumble, if you're not on Locals, you will not get to be a part of the reading of this report that they're talking about. So if you want to see what's in this report, you should probably just go ahead, leave YouTube permanently. I mean, that's the best thing for you, is to leave YouTube. They're scumbags, and I got a feeling that platform is about to get a whole lot worse. And Facebook's probably not much better. So if you come across this on Facebook and on YouTube, leave now. Just sign up for Rumble and Locals. You get to see the Immaculate Constellation report. Let's finish this interview, guys, so we can read that report, unless you're on YouTube and Facebook.
Allegedly very tight, and these unelected members on these congressional staffs that get to set the agenda for our elected leaders had to scramble and adjust in real time. They panicked. What I have learned is that we live in a dream, a carefully constructed reality. We make use of a science that is tightly controlled and suppressed and distorted.
Who are they? Why are they here? Why don't they show us what's going on?
I think I have a good degree of confidence that the reason they're here is us. I think life, especially sentient life, is a precious thing. And I think to some, it might be a resource. I think humanity to some level is a resource for them. It's been a very painful, costly process to find allies, but I have them. There's more of us.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't stop.
Right.
You got to know some of these other whistleblowers who are still not public yet.
Correct.
But who are at least close to coming forward.
Yes.
Is there strength in numbers then in that regard?
Yes, and if all of us die or imprisoned, the seeds have been planted, more will come. I fly out to California and I meet with Michael Schellenberger. I told him, hey, I got a story for you. Would you like to chat with me? I had met him previously very briefly, totally something unrelated. And his work on the Twitter files defending, free speech against a very pervasive and insidious censorship regime that our government, even before the Biden administration, had implemented, inspired me that he would do the right thing.
Logical, great choice. That was my hope, is to have a lot of journalists working on this from different angles who you can trust, who are honest. So that's where your head's at.
Yeah. So we have a good meeting. I show him the document. This has been cleared by state. I would prefer to maybe cut it down because it's pretty long.
Right.
But you get to look at it, and are you interested? The answer is yes. We're going to do a story. That's in summer of 24, I believe. Early summer, late spring. So with that in hand, and knowing that I had at least tapped Sask and Sissy, thought it was okay to move forward with that story, and then try to talk to House with the full details. In the meantime, before that story came out, it takes time to vet things. He has to look into me, just find out who I am, look into the details of what I'm alleging.
I know the George, and I know the process well.
So it takes months, so I got some time. And in that time, I, for the first time, get connected with David Grush. I have a very enlightening conversation with him. And at his suggestion, he connected me with you. And that is how we came to meet.
And I'm looking not to report on what you're saying initially. I'm looking to help you achieve the goal that we're all fighting for, which is getting the people asking for it, the information. This doesn't have to be public. It doesn't have to be a public display. This is, let's facilitate these conversations. That's where we started. I'm not really doing journalism work with you. I'm trying to just help the process go. That's how, that was my headspace.
Yeah, I was asking Gresh, I'm having a real hard time, A, meeting members themselves, and B, just even talking to anybody in house. Who's the guy to go to? And it was you.
Okay.
So that was the nature of our meeting.
George and I have had a great relationship trying to help facilitate information, knowledge, and human beings for this sort of thing. So it makes sense. It was a good move. We did well. With David Grush, so George and our role oftentimes is to connect people. We are reporters. It is to break stories, tell the news. But really, a lot of what I was personally doing was trying to help facilitate the process they're asking for. At that time, we had a great hearing. David Grush, also committed a favor, who had to beg to testify. It was great. It was a success. Everything was clean on that hearing. This was a new thing, a new era. It felt different from the get-go, but the idea was we were going to have another set of hearings. I'm all for that. They tapped me to try to help connect them with people and George. And so we've had many calls through many process. And now I'm out there to have meetings directly about firsthand people with firsthand experience who can directly testify about this, whether they talk publicly or not. This is the information you need. So I go to have these established meetings. You and I meet, do physically, and we talk about it, and you want to come with me, and I can bring you in, but I can't let them know because we're still trying to protect you, trying to protect your identity. So it was kind of like, we'll talk about it more in depth later, but a kind of harrowing experience. You were very nervous. I mean, it was like you're exposing yourself in those meetings.
Absolutely.
Right.
And just by walking into those offices, or the buildings those offices are in.
Right.
Very public.
Very public. So we kind of hid you in the camera crews, the way I say it, in that you were walking with us, but and getting into the buildings. But I asked each member, I said, okay, you wanted direct people. I have one here to speak with you. Everybody needs to leave the room, including the cameras. It'll just be us. Is that cool? And each one, although they gave us wisdom along the way as we did our progression of getting you right in front of people to give them your quick testimony and some documentation. So that's what we went through. And we go in, and there you are. You're sitting in front of and somebody with position. I just want to know, what did that feel like, first of all, that moment where you got to finally get to them?
I mean, in the moment, it just was somber, serious. Also, nervous. I got like, it's 5 minutes, but I only have probably like a minute to speak.
Bro, you were sweating. You were stressed. I mean, it was intense.
So getting most important information across, and also establishing my credibility as fast as possible.
And I was making sure you weren't a fucking plant. To be honest, that was part of the process, is making sure he'd say the same thing to to Congress, that to members that he said to me. Not that I didn't believe you, and I had done the vetting, and I was there, but I want to hear you say it, show it, so you're not trying to entrap me. I mean, honestly, that's part of my thing. Man, we got through that, didn't we?
It did. Yeah. It worked well.
It did.
Mm-hmm.
So you come out of that thinking, okay, all right, this is good. I made contact. We'll see where it goes.
Multiple. Yeah. Pretty strong.
Yeah. I mean, at this point in time, I'm very, actually, skeptical is not the right word. I did not believe that this would work in Congress, but I knew that the attempt had to be made.
We had to try.
I knew that I alone wasn't big enough or important enough to shift the tides of history there, to shift what apparently the executive branch had decided, which was, we are going to squash this, and anybody that tries to bring it up, we are going to silence, cut out, and disparage.
They were asking for whistleblowers, and there we are, and he is blowing the whistle on this, and that's what they were asking for. So for me, it was a big win for them to meet you face to face, because I knew down the line, if this is going to progress, look, you would have testified. Let's get real clear on this. They were asking for it.
Mm-hmm.
You would have testified. You were not asking to testify. You're saying, here's the little piece that I have, but you said in that room that you would if requested.
I would if asked, and I did not want to do it at the upcoming hearing.
Of course.
Because that was very close, and I in no way felt ready to do that.
But you put the ball in their court. I did. You said you would. They didn't ask, right? And we got to, there's a whole thing about that, but just you really put it out there.
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it'll take quite a change in our present circumstances for anybody to ever testify under oath on this subject again in a way that would make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I think they know the power of, in an open hearing, putting your hand on the Bible and swearing that you're going to speak nothing but the truth, and doing so is symbolic, and it's very valuable. And that is why I believe that they are desperately attempting to deny.
Well, and that's what we saw. We don't got to rehash it. That's what we saw at the second hearing. Absolutely controlled. Representative Burchett testified to it by saying it publicly, that the executive branch did limit what could be said and by who. And George has brought that up a bunch. When, so I agree.
The executive branch in the halls of Congress determining what the business of Congress is, and not even through the courtesy of a phone call to the vice president or the president, but through minions and stooges.
Mm-hmm.
Unelected, probably CIA.
Yeah, well, certainly. Yeah.
When you hear about the lineup for the hearing that was held, you got to be feeling pretty good about it.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be a witness. He's going to talk about Immaculate Constellation.
And not just a witness on his own, next to Lou Elizondo, Tim Gallaudet, and this guy I've never heard of before, but seems nice, Mike Gold.
Mike Gold.
That's
great.
They're thinking, all right, good. All right. It's going to come out.
We were all pumped.
Did you know exactly what was going to be discussed by the Schellenberger at that point? You can guess.
I mean, I knew it was going to be, me and my words and my report.
And because the two of you met with him the night before the hearing.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I had met with Michael to give him the story. It seemed like there's no mystery here why they're bringing him.
Yeah, there was a lot before that too, but I mean, I have a 2+ month process of prompting, trying to get something on congressional record, knowing that what your testimony was valuable. It wasn't just like spur of the moment. There is a process. It was 3 major meetings that occurred to validate the information that that you provided to me. It's not just like so getting on something on congressional record is a little bit more tricky than people think. They have to have time with it. So I very slowly, with your authorization, over those months, had in-person meetings, not just you being there, but then working with them, showing them the information so they had time to vet it. They're worried about getting scammed too, right? So it was a process. It was a process that for me was very arduous. Personally,
there were a lot of phone conversations that we sat in on with House staff, and it got curiouser and curiouser as the people who were in on these conversations with us on the other
national
end.
security folks just popping in on a meeting that I'm supposed to be having with them. They wanted to know what assets George and I have to visually show them. We were going to provide them. They were saying at one point that we were going to testify, and I said, "Cool." And I want to give something substantial to the American public. This is what I want to give them. Well, at some point they're trying to get us into a skiff, and our federal lawyer said, do not go in there because they will immediately classify all that information that allegedly you may have access to, and then you're never reporting on it. So we went through our own journey. We don't have to get into that in this discussion, but there was a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. But hurrah, hooray, congressional record, your report, which is misrepresented when Nancy Mace talked about it big time, but we're happy. And I was stoked to have Michael Schellenberger, who at that time I was like, this is great. He's going to be a good ally moving forward, and he's the right man for the job. Yeah, but bottom line, no matter the shenanigans involved and how revealing that second hearing was about the control mechanisms in place about UAP, I was elated, and I think so were you, that without having to put your face out to the public and endure all of that like you're doing and going to experience now, your testimony got put on a congressional record. That was a big win.
Yeah. There was a bit of a personal pleasure too. I, at the very least, got to see someone else be scared for once.
Who was scared?
Not the bosses of the people who interfere in Congress, but the minions themselves, because their bosses didn't tell them what was going to happen.
Can you dive a little deeper into that?
Well, by all appearances, both behind the scenes and in front of them, the submission of this report onto the congressional record and its announcement caught people by surprise. Its distribution was allegedly very tight, and these unelected members on these congressional staffs that get to set the agenda for our elected leaders had to scramble and adjust in real time. They panicked.
See, having something on congressional record is different than just putting out a news report. News report goes away, one click, done. This is much bigger, and I saw that too. So it was a big move, and it was filled with pleasure to see. It stirred shit up.
Yes.
You've said it before, and I want to drill this home. At one time, saying these words, putting these words in text, saying them over the phone, there was repercussion for that at one time.
I understand it.
As I understand it as well. Mm-hmm. But so it gets published, and I was stoked. I remember that day I went on a news show, and I was like, I had nothing. I didn't do it. Somebody put it out. I mean, you let me know that it was going to be public, but I was like stoked to hear those words mentioned. But getting it on record, watching the tables turn was filled with pleasure.
Yeah, no long-term outcome, but this is a fight without many wins. So take the small personal pleasures.
As this news travels, is there blowback? Do you suddenly realize, hey, something might happen to me as a result of this getting out there? You're happy that it's finally there on the record. But then does that change over the days or weeks afterward?
Not so much. I was definitely under no illusions at this point. Nothing would functionally change. But what mattered was, adding new fuel to the fire to what looked like was a dying cause.
Is there blowback for you personally? Does anybody call you and say you shouldn't have done that? Or does somebody figure out who you are? Is there an attempt to identify who you are?
I'm sure there were attempts, and I'm sure some of them were successful, but I've been known to internal security undoubtedly since almost day one.
Here's the deal. People misunderstand because it was misrepresented in Congress. This is not a Pentagon paper, a product.
Yeah.
You are the author of what the world knows as the Immaculate Constellation report. This is a report based upon a field report, based upon your investigation, what you've discovered, trying to do the right thing, bringing it to the people that need to see it because it was so hard, even though they're asking for you, to get it to them. So just to be really clear for the fundamentally for people, Immaculate Constellation report, what was submitted into Congress onto congressional record, which we fought together to get that done, is your words. It's not some government Pentagon report like it was misrepresented by Nancy Mason Congress.
Not at all my words, 100% authored by me.
One of the striking things for me in kind of talking with you through this process, but also just reading the final report that went on to congressional record, I mean, you list and label cuboid formation of metallic orbs. These are UFOs, right? So fast mover observed transiting over sensitive facilities. Intelligence vessels positioned to collect on reproduction vehicle. Equilateral triangle UAP tails unwitting vessel. This one struck me. Large disk using clouds as concealment. And why that struck me is because George and I have been exposed to a lot over the years. And I think I know, and other people know, what you're referencing in here. It sounds like you watched a video. You said on U.S. government networks there exists OPIR footage. What is it?
Overhead persistent infrared. That might be a correction. That satellite may not have been an OPR satellite after all.
But this one, and you keep going on, a boomerang shaped, jellyfish shaped, tic tac shaped. You're not just making these words up. Like, you saw visual evidence of these.
Yeah.
And so did have George Knapp and I. We have been exposed to, along the years, a lot of visual evidence. But this one, the large disc in the clouds, just explain to me seeing something like that.
Well, number one, it's pretty striking because you're watching it from space. It's always cool to watch satellite feeds. And that's just something the general public doesn't get to see. And then, too, just the size of it, it was immediately like, whoa, what the hell is that? It was in, I assume, infrared, black hot for that one. So the white clouds around it. And yeah, it's almost playful in its activities, or like it was startled. But it's one of those cases where I look at it and, it looks like a flying saucer, but it might be one of the things that maybe that was actually one of ours. In the wrong place at the wrong time.
What do you mean it looks startled? What does that mean?
It's just looking at an area over the ocean is what it appears. And this thing just comes trundling along from like underneath the cloud cover, comes up. And then right when it's like almost center frame, it scoots off to the side and like tries to get out of,
like it comes into it and going, oops, somebody spotted me. I can get out of it.
Exactly. It was visibly, that's the feeling it had.
That was kind of haunting to me. We checked when we were with some friends recently. I never know. We are not qualified to know if some of the things we've been exposed to are legitimate or not. But when I get confirmations like you describing this and other people we've just recently talked to, I know that footage exists. We've been exposed to it. And I think that's a nice piece to the puzzle for the public.
What about jellyfish?
Yeah, so I only heard that term once it was released. It's similar stuff that I had seen on the inside, and it was often labeled like a floating brain or an organic or irregular shape, so that's why it's in there. So yeah, I've seen multiple instances of irregular shaped things that look thematically similar to the jellyfish. I've never seen the jellyfish video itself. But seeing those, there's an instance of one in Southcom, right at our border, crossing what appears to be into United States airspace.
Let me get clear.
Undetected.
From Mexico?
I believe from one way or another. I can't recall the compass orientation right now, but I would assume into the U.S., which is why it was interesting.
Let me get clear on a couple of things. Well, first of all, people like yourself, it's happened with Lazar, happened with Greg. Like every word you say, you're worried about if your memory isn't perfect. You've done a great job of really curating, making sure what you said is accurate. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to not remember the exact equipment that did this or that in your brain. Just so. So you're saying the word jellyfish you first heard kind of when George and I released that thing into the public media, jellyfish, although it was described differently for different assets you've seen on servers? That
That term was describing something I had seen before.
Okay. But we just called it jellyfish because that's what it was told to us. They had two. Spaghetti monster was our other option. It was said to jellyfish works, but that morphology or shape is something that consistently you had seen within these classified servers.
Yes, in other contexts outside of the Middle East.
Okay.
You ever see any videos where we're engaging with them? Either we're chasing them, our warplanes or something, or going after a disc, a saucer, an orb, or something like that?
So I've seen videos and read reports of engagements, but not live, like we're not shooting them, but engagements where, either we are trying to intercept something, read lots of reports on that, and from other countries as well, trying to intercept these things. Each report will have its own shape that they're chasing, but guess what they are. But then, when there's an example in there off the East Coast, what would be classed as an engagement, where we're up there protecting our airspace and encountering these things and interacting with them in a way that we would consider hostile. And if it was anything else, if we had a Russian bomber patrol that had a fighter escort and they tried to box our fighters out, force them down from the wash, the jet wash, that would be a hostile engagement. But for whatever reason, we're not describing it that way internally.
So we're sending a plane up to take a look.
Yeah.
Maybe get a better look or even some imagery, but not to engage, meaning shoot it down, shoot a Sidewinder at it or something.
Right. I would, I'm not going to be able to say that's never happened, but I have not seen them engaged, with weapons.
Well,
yeah. I'm trying to think of what year this was. I think it was 2013. So a cousin of mine got me into watching. There was a meteor shower, and he pointed out to me, "Hey, we can find a spot where there's less light pollution. We can really see this meteor shower pretty good." And we did. Man, it would look like bombs at times blowing up in the sky. It was like God putting on a fireworks show. And so that's where I became kind of fascinated with, hey, at night, finding a good dark area and just looking up at the stars to see what might happen. Because you might find yourself a show going off in the sky. And it was in 2013 when that happened, that meteor shower. It was before that. But it stuck with me to, every once in a while at night, go watch the sky. Because you never know what you might see. Might be better than anything that's on TV. In 2013, I'm at my aunt's house. And what I thought I was watching in the sky was, I thought it was at first a satellite, right? I'm thinking, dude, I see a satellite. This is cool. And man, I'm locked in on that thing, watching it. And it's creeping across the sky. Locked in. And then out of nowhere, I can't see it anymore. I'm like, whoa, where'd this thing go? So, say I'm looking at the sky, I'm watching it go across the sky like this. Whoa, that's a satellite. That's a satellite. And now it's not here anymore. Like, where'd it go? How did I lose that? How did I lose that satellite? And it went from there to over there. And it's now flying that way. I go, how in the hell can a satellite jump to a different location in the sky? And that's when I became paranoid about what's going on in the sky. Part of me has always wondered the reason it jumped locations was possibly because something tried to take a shot at it. So, the reason that came to my memory as this dude brought that up. Matter of fact, if it had not been for that experience in 2013, I would have never paid attention to any of those who watched last night's live stream, the episode 1 of the Truth X-Files. Had it not been for that experience, I would have never really paid attention to what I was calling that big ass star in the sky, which ended up being a black triangle that had one white light in each corner of it on the belly of the craft. So, had it not been for the experience, I wouldn't have been paying attention to that. Because it was like weeks in a row when I was seeing that star, big ass star, and it turns out to be a craft. So, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to go watch last night's live stream. Anytime I see an orb in the sky and it doesn't have traffic lights on it, I laser in on that thing. And when it does vanish, eventually an aircraft will follow it, start flying in the same flight trajectory of the orb, and has blinking lights on it. Just saying. People need to start watching the night skies more often. It's pretty entertaining. Oh, man. Speaking of, I don't know if you guys have ever watched that Roku show, which I am totally thinking is 100% scripted and fake as all get out. But entertaining show called UFO Cowboys. All them, that Roku show where the Cowboys are, it's very much ripping off Secret of the Skinwalker Ranch, but they're traveling around. And one of those cowboys, I was watching last night, that new movie from Angel Studios, The Last Rodeo. Must watch, by the way. Great film, great family movie. Bubba from Forrest Gump is in it. Bad guy for Walking Tall's in it. Great dude. There's a couple times that man like, yeah, this is challenging my manhood. I'm trying not to tear up right here, man. It's that good. The good story. But one of the cowboys from UFO Cowboys is in that movie in the beginning. He's in the stands watching a baseball game, kind of flirting in the distance with the bad guy from Walking Tall's daughter in the movie. Great watch. You guys got to watch The Last Rodeo. Such a good movie. Shooter McGavin's in it. I was like, holy shit. That's Shooter McGavin. The dude eats pieces of shit for breakfast. All right, let's finish this interview.
Well, it recently happened, and we became aware of one. More details on that, I think we'll report on. And what happened was the missile, quote, bounced off And so they're trying to figure that out. But what does that imply? Like a field around it? I don't know. We also released one that was so embarrassing to release. We had to call it looked like Kermit the Frog. I think we called it Syria Dome UAP. But the reason we released it because Verified, we tried to engage it. We tried to shoot it. And I believe we hit it, but we don't know the aftermath or what happened to that. We reported on that is actual information, even though it looks so silly, we had to report it because it's UAP. So from the recent event to that, it brings me back to what you said, George, about the official orders back in Russia back in the day. Tell me that real quick again.
So the Russian military, that from 78 to 88, they had a standing order for every unit in this vast Soviet military empire. Any UFO or ball of light, flying saucer, anything weird in the sky, it had to all be investigated. And the guy who was in charge of that program at the Ministry of Defense said that there had been several dozen instances where they sent warplanes, to intercept these UFOs, and they couldn't keep up with them. They just poof, they're gone. But in 3 cases, they tried to engage and shoot them down. 3 cases where those planes, the Russian warplanes, crashed. 2 of the pilots died, and after the second pilot died, they issued an order, leave them alone. Because in the words of the commander of the Russian Air Force, they said they have incredible capacities for retaliation.
Why so many shapes? Why do you think so many shapes? I used to think flying saucers were discs. I used to think UFOs were flying saucers. That's what I used to think. Now, after knowing this guy for so long, reading all the reports, getting whistleblowers, talking with him, why so many shapes?
I think part of it's sometimes these might be, made to purpose. So, if they're only making it for a specific use case scenario, they'll design it to excel in that mission.
I guess we do that. We do that.
Absolutely.
We have bombers that look a certain way, and then we have reconnaissance vehicles that look another way. I guess.
Star Wars, they have giant cruisers, and they have the X-fighters, for different jobs. Would you be surprised to hear about cases where these things, large objects, come out of the ocean or go back into the ocean? Does that sound familiar?
I would not be surprised. I have not seen very large objects go out of the water, but I've definitely seen small to medium-sized UAPs either going into the water and disappearing, or going in and out, or coming out of the water.
Fact.
And on video and described.
There's a video and described any kind of change of inertia. Multiple videos. Yeah. Any kind of. We have also been exposed to some. Let me ask you this: any change of any inertial effect, any change of speed or motion?
That's like the water wasn't there.
It's like the gold for anybody who wants to see. I wonder if it's ever enough. Is video ever enough? What is enough for people to wrap their heads that there's a real issue here? I don't know. I don't think one video is ever going to change. I want to talk to you about signals, intelligence, SIGINT, right? That was a big part of your investigation. Can you explain that and why? Yeah,
so it was one of the sources where, we have a fantastic intelligent posture. It's not as data heavy, so it's just much easier to move around and access and read through quickly. Mm-hmm. Now, it's one of the shortest sections in there because in my mind, these are incidental collections, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure we are specifically collecting signals intelligence on this, but my research was not in those sort of data streams.
Vast majority is accidental kind of capturing of
exactly from other countries, other militaries' activities related to this, and their observations related to this, or sometimes historic things that we acquire that happen to pop up in the SIGINT channels. So the reason there's less detail there, though, is we're using those every day. We rely on them a lot, and they're very fragile, very sensitive, and diplomatically sensitive as well.
The things you're describing that you'd seen that are in this report are mostly things that there's in the Pacific and the Atlantic. There's over Africa. They're foreign things, something coming over the border from Mexico. What about cases in the U.S.? Is NORAD, is that just a black hole for these kinds of images? So something that happens over our country, you don't even get to see it.
Yeah, Northcom is a black hole. Just legislatively, there's legal things keeping us, the military and the IC, supposedly, from looking at the states. That's supposed to be a domestic law enforcement mission in general, you got to have a very good reason to be looking at, over your neighbor's fence, basically. This is I think it's, it's functionally a barrier to prevent accidental or just curious people, doing things they shouldn't in our homeland, which would actually get them in trouble. It's one thing if we're doing it, some foreign country. It's one thing if we're crossing the line and spying here without a specific mission.
The complaint we hear from UFO world is, I don't care about these blurry images. These things are blurry. The Tic Tac, to me, that was a fantastic image. You're not sending Dave Fravor up with an IMAX camera to make a movie. These are captured on sensor systems, the same as like 2019, the USS Omaha, pitch black, 100 miles off the coast of Southern California. They're picking up an image that they follow for an hour on a thermal camera. They're blurry, but they're amazing images. I mean, is there a reason that the public doesn't see crystal clear movie quality images of UFOs?
Yeah, I think unfortunately it's a product of our education system, a lack of curiosity in general about the world. There's a lot of arrogance in our academy, and that arrogance filters down to our citizens. We know the world. We have it figured out. There's nothing really left to discover here. And I think in general, there's so much misinformation, stigma, mythology that people grow up with that lead them to just automatically categorize any of this as just, false, fake, not real, misidentified,
or mundane. Yeah.
Well, I mean, getting an image on a thermal camera 100 miles out to sea in total blackness sounds pretty cool to me. That sounds like an amazing accomplishment. But are there additional reasons that have been maybe discussed behind closed doors, force fields of some sort around these craft that make things blurry, even from a good camera image? Do you know?
Probably a very real explanation for why certain shapes are harder to observe than others. I think, whether it's active camouflage and like the skin of the vehicle itself, that definitely seems to be in play, or a field like you describe. I've seen evidence of fields around crafts.
Yeah, some things we've seen have looked so bizarre, it makes no sense to my brain. It is possible, I've heard that from a number of whistleblowers at different levels, that what you're seeing could just be a part of a greater structure, so it could be something like that, speculating.
We had this Chinese balloon thing that happened, 3 different objects, UFOs, 3 UFOs shot down in a couple of week period. And then we saw people use that, the usual people in the media world who bash this stuff, who tried to blame it on the UAP task force. The reason NORAD is not looking for something like this, because the UAP task force confused the whole situation. It's as if NORAD would only look for things that look like planes, bombers, or missiles. So we didn't look for UFOs. Is it possible that we didn't look for UFOs because it didn't really want to find them? Or is it we were looking for UFOs and just the public and most of the government never saw?
We've always been seeing these things with things like radar. So it's part of standard operating procedures to deny this and to not acknowledge it.
So we've been seeing it. We're just pretending not to see it.
Absolutely. Our public institutions like the FAA or similar, in even local context, it's not allowed to be discussed, and there might even be technical measures in the technology of this place that just prevents it from even popping up on a screen.
Right.
Like Tic Tac. So that happened for 2 or 3 weeks. They could get a little glimpse of it on these systems, really sensitive, advanced Navy systems at the time, and then poof, it fell off. At the USS Omaha, they had 12 or 14 of these things zipping in. You'd see them on the radar screen, and then poof. If they didn't want to be seen, we weren't seeing them. I guess it could be that as part of an explanation. If they don't want to be detected on radar, they have ways to avoid radar, whoever they are.
Yeah, that's a dangerous dynamic to have willful ignorance on our side and their capability to at least attempt to evade detection at any time on theirs. If we are so certain they are friendly, why is this a secret?
I have one more.
Yeah.
Drones. So 60 Minutes just did a big piece on drones. Langley Air Force Base had these things flying over it for 17 nights in a row, stayed in New Jersey for weeks at a time, sensitive bases, restricted airspace at US, UK bases in Britain for days and days.
Here
We can't track these things coming in. We can't track them when they leave. We can't shoot them down. We don't know where they're from. But don't worry, they're just drones. They're foreign surveillance drones. Give me your take on that whole situation.
Well, if you're a member of the public and you are still listening to CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, or reading the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, all of that is controlled. It's propaganda. It is shaping your life narrative, intentionally so.
Told you.
As for the government reactions to that, I was very disappointed to see a continuation of the dismissal of these events by the Trump administration's press secretary. I can guess why they decided, despite the campaign promise to immediately address that issue, to not. Has to do with geopolitical situations we are currently involved in, and the fact that we are living through a constitutional crisis related to this issue.
Just seems to me that it is a worse thing to say these might be foreign surveillance drones, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it. We can't track them, we can't see them, we can't shoot them down. Than it is to say these are genuine unknowns. It seems like they're unknowns, not just some drone that the Chinese are floating off of New Jersey.
Well, there's an infection in our security thinking, which is that we must. They're primicists. They must be on top. To admit weakness is to admit defeat, and to say you don't know what something is a pretty big signal of weakness. There's not much humility and a lot of arrogance driving, I think, these responses more so than any strategy.
Yeah, we got just. I want to defend footage real quick. Yeah. I got three things. I want to defend footage. There's a lack of education about what people are seeing in thermal. So first of all, these are weapon systems. These aren't IMAX cameras. Right. But they're kind of better than an IMAX camera because you can see in the fucking dark. So I think there's an education process. And we've been trying with our reporting to teach people when you see something in thermal, what you're seeing is a heat signature. And that heat signature represents that shape and of the heat. It's just I think it's an education process. It has to come from curiosity, but people need to be told what they're seeing. It's new to a lot of people. It was new to me when I started seeing military videos for the first time. So in defense of grainy, bad footage, people just need to understand what they're seeing to understand the impact if they're curious enough. Question, any country in this world could disclose at this point, a major country with technological development could disclose we are not alone in the universe. There are others as visitors have been here a long time. Why? Why has everybody agreed to not say that to the public? Do you have any philosophies why?
I think in the West, this is the reaction. That's an important distinction. I cannot comment so much on why Russia or China have not addressed this in a different way than us. But I think in the West, in the Five Eyes Alliance and its subsidiaries, there is a understanding, at least, that this is not talked about at official channels, especially if you're a small kid on the block. Mm-hmm. You don't speak out of turn.
Shut your mouth.
But it also points to, I think, the fact that this doesn't ultimately reside in the government anymore. This is held in an illegal internationalist regime, some sort of international cabal of sorts, mix of corporate, military, political, intelligence, and criminal interests that have come together, and they have subverted us and have taken this and have made it the source of their wealth and power.
So at Astronaut, Dr. Edgar Mitchell told me in one of the last films before he died, he used very similar words.
Well, that doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah, well, he was sure of it. you're a whistleblower, not a source to me and George. You're a whistleblower. We do want to help. Are I always hear whistleblowers are scared, and we know some people, the same people, but there's a lot that have come to us that you don't know. Are you scared? Are you scared now coming forward? Are you scared?
I mean, it comes in waves.
Okay.
So yes, but I make a conscious effort every day to not let fear rule my life and my deeds. So yes, I'm scared.
Fear not.
But this is the right thing. It's the necessary thing. And I was raised right.
You think that by talking to us, it's possible that you might have some protection in that if somebody cuts your brake lines and you go off a cliff, at least there's going to be somebody looking into it and raise some hell about it.
If that happens, don't try too hard. Focus on the mission.
So this is more about people need to know than about your personal well-being.
Any regrets? No.
I trusted too much, and I did not trust myself enough. Took some, I paid some prices, and I do not doubt that there are the seeds for future costs I'll have to pay in the future.
Describe for us the personal costs, the reality for you going forward, your outlook for ever working for the government again, for example, or with any kind of a job that requires a security clearance, personal costs to your marriage, your personal life.
Well, with the job with government, my career is dead. It has been dead for years now. I have a file on me. I will, even if I went back in, even if I chose to never do any of this and just keep working, I predict that I would have found my career stunted mysteriously as soon as it would have sought to advance into what I thought was a noble mission. Personally, it's hard to describe. That I've been doing this for about 4 years now. Only very recently have I had anyone to talk to about it in outside of hey, can you make this meeting happen? I've had no allies. That has changed. It's been a very painful, costly process to find allies, but I have them. There's more of us.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't stop.
Right.
You got to know some of these other whistleblowers who are still not public yet.
Correct.
But who are at least close to coming forward.
Yes.
Is there strength in numbers then in that regard?
Yes, and if all of us die or imprisoned, the seeds have been planted. More will come.
Well, those seeds have been planted about deaths in the whistleblower community. Those stories circulate, I would imagine, pretty quickly among you and people you know.
Yeah, but I'm still here.
You think anybody has been killed because they knew too much on this topic?
Yes, I believe and I think, and I could probably help someone else prove it.
Mm-hmm.
But lethal action has been taken against people that tried to get the truth out. Or maybe we're just considered wild cards, not able to be efficiently controlled, no longer useful. I think once you taste the darkness, you like using it.
They don't have to kill you. They could discredit you some way.
Oh, yeah.
Manufacture something.
Mm-hmm.
They asked you to come forward, and you even felt that you had a small piece to the puzzle, and you weren't even sure if it was worth it. And then you do that, and what you suffer as the consequences against your career. There's other things we're not saying that we suspect are related to you coming forward. God, that's got to hurt, man. That's got to be painful. They've asked you to come forward, and you tried all the ways to do that. We had to go to a little bit extreme measures to get the rest going. It's got to be painful.
Yeah, it is. I don't think it'll stop being, although hopefully time is its own salve.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to spend that time with my wife, my family, not in a cell or in the ground. But, this is bigger than me. It's bigger than us. This is the fate of our people. And to me, I'm willing to pay that price.
Is it ironic you have to put your face out with us to protect yourself at this point? That's what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
This is absolutely what I did not want to do.
I know, I can attest to that. This is exactly what you did not want to do.
Correct.
Have you gamed it out in your head? What happens next? What will likely be, assuming we go forward with this interview and make it public, and that right now we don't know that that's the case, but when it comes out, if it comes out, what
It's
happens
out
to you
now.
then? What are the risks?
Well, gaming it out, there's more than me. More will come. I could say more if I wanted to. Hopefully this rises to a level of public attention that demands it be addressed in a serious way. I can't cause that alone. Other people will, but more need to come. And I think at this point, I'd like to say directly to the members of our military and our intelligence community, the time is now where you must choose whether you honor your oath or your orders. And if you have courage, you already know the answer. But for the rest of you, lead, follower, get out of the way. Get out of the way.
We know people are coming forward, and we know we've recorded, George and I, with other people who will be coming forward. You know, so you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
But you say you could say more. Just explain that.
When I wrote this document, I've kind of given my state of mind and the measures I took to protect it. I'm also, familiar with ways that information can be extracted, that passwords and encryption don't matter. So I didn't write everything down.
So there are other bullets left to fire if you needed to.
Yeah. Talk about things getting lost in the shuffle. I highly doubt many members of the public read 11 pages, much less the first.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, there's an interesting area. People might notice that it's out of order, too. Things are sequentially out of order. There's missing sections.
Mm-hmm.
And that one of that last sections says sensitive sources from mouth to ear.
Mm-hmm. We talked about keeping that in, or what to, how far to go with.
What does that mean?
Well, exactly what it says. Those words were only spoken from my mouth to another's ear.
What is it like to have absolute knowledge that not only UFOs are real, that we've been hiding that our government has controlled that information away from the base human population, and that there is another intelligence that is engaging humanity straight up? What does that feel like, being one of the people that knows that and doesn't suspect that?
It's weird going to the supermarket.
Okay.
Even more, it's bizarre to work in government and see legions of people who have no clue about any of this, and no clue that they are being deceived.
Why should people believe you? I mean, I know you, I know what we've been through, but that's not public stuff to everybody, every step we've taken. Why should people believe what you're saying?
I was there. I saw it. I spent years researching it. If all that I'm consulting is passage material, then we are engaged in a massive deception against our own military and intelligence community that I was a victim of, and it would have been on a scale that probably would have been its own news story.
Oh, absolutely nonsensical madness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a human being, why should people believe you?
Well, as a human being, I feel like I'm genuine, putting myself out there. sacrificing my future, my past, and a lot of what I have now to do this for no gain.
Yeah, you're getting nothing from us. We're just reporting because it's an important story.
And you're telling it because it's true.
Absolutely. It is true. And I can't think of anything more pressing for our nation to come to terms with than the fact that we have been deceived and our rights taken away to protect the privileges of an elite few.
You're not.
I am not going to live my life knowing that I could have helped prevent another generation of America and humanity from living in ignorance.
So let's just separate, for our audience and people kind of meeting you for the first time. So there's certain stuff you were exposed to in an official capacity that you've come to conclusion on and know to be correct, know to be true. Then there are extrapolations and philosophies and ideas from other types of sourcing of information. And we can talk about that kind of in a separate realm. And I value your opinion. I think people will too, because of your exposure to certain things you're saying and not saying. Okay. But if we're talking just about our ideas now.
You have thoughts about big picture stuff, who they are. Is it more than one they? Is it us from the future, ETs, interdimensionals? Do you think there's anybody in government who knows? And if they do know, is there any reason why this should stay secret? Or at least some of it should stay secret that the public cannot handle?
No. The only reason for secrecy is fear and greed. And that is the paradigm that we must confront and overcome. As for the public and what their reaction might be to this information, good, bad, indifference, I think we already have our answer. It's going to be indifference, unless the stakes are made clear.
You're an absolutist. You like rip the Band-Aid off.
There's no Band-Aid. There's no wound. This is not about protecting, healing. This is about power and control. This isn't about trying to save what's good. It's about getting rid of what's evil.
Power and control, meaning controlling the technology and what it would mean.
Those are just means. Controlling humanity.
Everything. Do you suspect that there are reverse engineering programs, that there have been crashes, that there are attempts to replicate that technology? You got hints of it in the ARV or RV, that we're trying to build what these things can do. Do you think we've done it, that we've accomplished it? Somebody?
Yeah, I think we've absolutely replicated some of these capabilities in inferior forms, and oftentimes maybe disaggregated from what was, I won't say unitary system, but we're only able to do a small part what that system does.
We've seen people say they think that the Tic Tac is something we had 21 years ago. And I'm wondering, well, where the hell is it? I mean, if we have this technology, we've done some of it to get even inferior versions of it. Is that something that's going to be incorporated into the U.S. military arsenal, or is it something that's outside of it, that's controlled by somebody who's not using it for national defense?
I think the U.S. military might be allowed to use some of this technology in the national defense, but I don't think they ultimately have control over it.
This is a kind of arms race. It's a technology race. Whoever gains the ability to effectively weaponize this, they win. We know that UFOs, due to the propulsion systems, are a matter of national security and weapons of mass destruction. And we know that. We don't think that. We met with people that deal with that, right? Do you agree with that? Do you think that we are in a race with China and Russia? There's other countries competing to weaponize this. And do you think that's a problem? Because you've dealt with weapons of mass destruction in your official career.
I think strategic deterrence has migrated out of, has evolved from being relying on nuclear weapons as the pinnacle. I believe we have, and others, have developed the means to maybe utilize nuclear reactions to create some very dangerous effects through directed energy.
Your concern is directed energy weaponry.
Among many. But when it comes to WMDs and relations to this technology, I think we have been successful in both deriving new science that we have then suppressed to preserve a strategic advantage. And I think I probably don't want to talk too much more about deterrence.
Somebody was flying these things that crashed. Somebody built these things that are being reverse engineered. Who's that somebody? And why don't they come forward? I mean, you may not have seen that in a document or a file or something somewhere, but you've thought about it. You're a smart guy. What are your thoughts on the big picture questions? Who are they? Why are they here? Why don't they show us what's going on?
I think I have a good degree of confidence that the reason they're here is us. I think life, especially sentient life, is a precious thing. And I think to some, it might be a resource. I think humanity to some level is a resource for them.
Like a commodity?
Possibly a commodity, possibly a form of entertainment, possibly medical related.
Think they live here?
Yes.
For all intents and purposes?
Yes.
Always? Basically.
I don't know about always, but it certainly appears that they have been here for most of recorded history. At least some element of this has been here for most of human recorded history.
You think we would see them if they didn't let us see them? Even with our more advanced sensors, that they pop up, but they can also disappear. And do they allow us to get these glimpses? Is that a game of some sort, I wonder? Or an education process?
It's a bizarre one that I could not understand if it is a game. I think they're both just as powerful as we think, but also less. And I think there is not a single they here. Certainly multiple factions of the same species, if not multiple species. And all the complexity that brings, which might be our best hope.
Do they have an agenda? There's different types. What are your philosophies on this? Like, who are the others? Why are they here? And you've touched upon it. I know we're kind of going back a little bit, but that is the big question. And I just wanted to separate so people understand your exposure and your personal conclusions.
So I have been exposed to no direct information on the anatomy, biology, intentions, culture, politics.
Never came across those files?
Never came across those. I think those are all some of the deepest secrets.
Right. They would be if this is correct information.
What I have learned is that we live in a dream, a carefully constructed reality. We make use of a science that is tightly controlled and suppressed and distorted. I think we are left behind.
Humans.
I think normies, the normal humans, the people have been left behind. Us. People need to understand that we might have freedom of speech, but that has been subverted. We do not have freedom of inquiry. We are blocked from learning what we need to know. Just in the public world, we are blocked from advancing in science. We are taught false science intentionally to prevent us from learning more. We live in the Matrix. It's just much more boring than the movie.
I think about whistleblowers like yourself. You're about to find out, assuming we release this, you're about to find out what the price is for coming forward. And there are other people in the same kind of position who are wondering what they should do. who are basically being held in limbo. They worked in classified programs their whole life. That's what they do. That's what pays their bills. And they're held in limbo, and that's held over their heads so they don't come forward. And they're debating taking the same steps as you. There is no hope or help for anything like folks like that, is there? I mean, we've heard promises. We'll help whistleblowers come forward. We'll give them support. There are private equity funds and organizations that say they're going to help, but we haven't seen shit so far, have we? And have you?
No, I've reached out directly to institutions that claim that they are here to help UAP whistleblowers specifically, both in the process of coming forward and any sort of stability afterwards. It's been radio silence at best. At worst, one of those institutions has stolen my information.
Oh.
There is no organized help for whistleblowers. It is all controlled. It is all at either the special interest of industry that wants to get in on this, or by the existing powers that be.
Intelligence agencies who have infiltrated or created these things.
Correct.
I have directly experienced that, sadly, over this last year, which is the vacuuming up of intelligence on people such as yourself who are trying to do the right thing as whistleblowers, as well as anything that reporters could possibly obtain and release. And it is a treacherous moment in our history of this. You did a call to action to people. You told them this, it's time, move forward. I know that you had some encouragement with David Grush. I hope people are encouraged, also by you. Look, man, if you were to die tomorrow because of whatever reason, what do you want people to know right now? Like, what do you want people to know if you're just like fucking gone?
You are not free. And this reality has far more to it than you have been allowed to believe. And God is real.
Oh. Oh. God is real. I did not see that coming. Wow. Gave me goosebumps, man. Wow. Oh, he's gonna dock for free on Tubi. Interesting. Look at this UAP, large disk UAP activity. UAP navigates through clouds. Detection Air Force, November 23rd, 2020. I have never seen this footage before we screw the YouTube and Facebook people out. Let's check this footage out. Yeah, it's definitely clouds. Is it that dot? Is this it? Oh, no, there it is. Oh, shit. Okay. That last one could have been the sun, you know. All right. That was a fascinating interview. My mind insert. Ouch. I did not see his final remarks coming. God is real. Whoa. I mean, trust me, I know God's real. All right. Bible right there. Yeah, I know the Lord's real, man. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. Man, what I would give to talk to that dude. So, to you on Facebook and YouTube, by the way, YouTube, not the viewers, the corporation, Google, I want to give you something, YouTube, before we end our transmission on your shitty platform that tells people how they can talk. And if you don't like how they talk, you just remove all their shit. Trust me, I know. Shit. You know, I was talking about my Viking friend, Ivar Mecton. I'm probably about to get kicked off of YouTube for that too. So, in gratitude of you initially kicking and destroying my original channel off of YouTube, I have a gift for you, and it's this, motherfuckers. Fuck you, YouTube. But it's not to you, the viewers on YouTube. Matter of fact, why don't you leave YouTube? Come to Rumble. You guys want to see the report, the Immaculate Constellation report. We're about to read it. You're running out of time on those platforms. Game over. Take the exit ramp. Come to Rumble. Because we are about to read those. The report is coming up. Your time on YouTube and local, or yeah, YouTube and Facebook. The stream is now over for you. God bless you, though. To the viewers, not you, YouTube. You can go yourself. Come to Rumble. Come to Rumble.